welcome your moderator for the day, our Director of Media and Communications, Adam Orduna.
Okay, let's try to get this going here. All right, to get started, do we have any veterans or active members of our services here? Can we please have you stand up? Give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you for your service and all that. And with that, can we all please stand and the Pledge of Allegiance right now? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, folks. Well, welcome to our final day of Washington Days. This is our 2026 candidate forum. So thank you for getting up early this Sunday morning, and we want to get right to it. So I'm going to explain the rules and kind of format really quickly. But I want to start off by thanking our sponsors, Middle of the Road and Smart, along with Act Blue as well. So thank you to all of our sponsors for this weekend, and especially for today. For the rules, so we will have a 2-minute opening for each candidate to be able to explain who they are and talk about themselves. They will have a minute and a half, 90 seconds to answer each question, and then they will have 90 seconds for a final close, a wrap up for themselves. We will have a timer, so that way we keep on track as well. Questions were submitted by Democratic folks from across the state, so everyone that has a question asked is from folks like yourself. We will rotate the questions, and there will not be any crosstalk. We want this to be so that you guys can really hear their answers. So we want it to be as formal as possible. We do understand that there will be supporters, so if you clap, that's okay, but please keep it to a minimum so that way everyone can get through. And so again, this is not a debate, so we're going to try to keep it smooth, let everybody be able to answer their questions. So no yelling, please, in the crowd. Again, I understand their support, but please keep it low. So with that, let's get right to it. And we will start with a great group of folks today. Thank you again for all of you for throwing your hat in the ring and being willing to run. We need everybody to do whatever they can to try to help us all. So thank you for being willing to step up to the plate. So let's go right down the line here. And all right, so we've got our congressional candidates, and I will just start right down the line. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and say who you are, so we get to know who you are. Yes, your opening statements. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I am Katie Tyndall. I am a fifth-generation Kansan, an attorney, a mom, a wife, co-founder of Leading Kansas, and I am running to be the very first U.S. Congresswoman for the 4th District of Kansas. I grew up in a small ranching and farming community where hard work, personal responsibility, a sense of community, taking care of your neighbors, those weren't just political talking points, they were a way of life. And it is those values that have shaped every single chapter of my life since. After college and law school, I landed my dream job as a staff attorney for the National Congress of American Indians, and I had the privilege of advocating for tribes across the nation in our nation's capital. I had no intention of leaving that work, but in 2012, I got a call from my dad that he needed my help in the family business, and so my husband and I uprooted our lives in Washington, D.C. We moved to Wichita to answer that call, and I haven't looked back. Family responsibility is everything to me, and we built our lives in Wichita. In 2025, I had no intention of getting involved in politics, but like many of you, I was frustrated with government incompetence and the growing divide in our culture. So I helped found Leading Kansas, a statewide nonpartisan organization dedicated to defending our democratic institutions, championing the truth, and holding our leaders accountable to the people. And it is largely because of that work that I was asked to run for this office. I think, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Kansas right now has somebody in Ron Estes who is not listening to the voices of Kansas. And it's time that we restore the voice of the people in Washington, D.C. Kansans deserve leadership that is grounded in integrity, accountability, and the courage to put people over party. And that is exactly the kind of leadership that I will bring to Washington, D.C. And I look forward to earning the support of each and every one of you. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Colin, and I'm a businessman, I'm a negotiator, I'm a lawyer, and I'm a teacher. And I do all of those careers simultaneously at the University of Kansas, where I'm a professor of business law and negotiation. I left my private practice, a very lucrative private practice, a lot of years ago when I met my wife, and I realized that some things matter more than money. The bad news is I did that before I got rich, which would be pretty convenient right now in politics. But the good news is it leaves me as an internationally recognized expert in negotiation and business who knows what matters, knows what values and principles are, and knows what it takes to succeed. And what it takes to succeed, especially in the first district, where I'm running for the House, is an aspirational goal, a high goal that people don't think we can accomplish, and a plan to achieve it. My goal is not to put myself in Congress. That's a means to an end. My goal is transformation. My goal is to make the first district competitive again, a place the country looks to as a guide to what it looks like and what we can achieve when people vote for the best candidate instead of the right party, the party they've been told to vote for, the party their parents voted for. We can make that transformation happen. And this is the year. This is the first year in decades that it's become possible because the blue wave isn't coming, it's here. We've seen it transform races all over the country already in the last year. But it's not enough. It's not an answer. It's not going to sweep us into office. That blue wave is a call to work, a call to achieve, a call to build that transformation over time by inspiring the people around us, by speaking to them about who we are as Democrats and why they should see us differently, to break the stereotypes that have bound us. And we do that by showing up with ideas, real, practical ideas. And you've heard those from me at the panels yesterday and my events around the state, and you're going to hear a lot more of it from me, because together, with you, we can inspire the first district and the rest of the state and achieve that transformation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Chris Carmichael, 4th District. I've worn our country's uniform for 31 years. I've led men and women in missions where lives were on the line. This wasn't theoretical. This was real, and the consequences are real. When you're responsible for human lives, you know the importance of getting results. That's why I'm running. I'm running because basics shouldn't break the bank. Working Kansas need access to healthcare, good jobs that stay here, public schools that are strong, retirement benefits that are protected, leadership that shows up, does the work, and ensures freedom, justice, and opportunity for all Kansans. And in my entire career, I've done exactly that and got the mission done. I want to be honest with you. Because leadership is not just about titles and experience, it's about character. Character is forged in the hardest moments of our lives. When I was a kid, I was kidnapped by my own father. My mother had to find us. We were hidden away for 4 years, and we had to relearn trust and things like that. As a result, I had physical, emotional, and academic shortcomings. I was misdiagnosed with a learning disability, and I didn't even really know how to effectively read until my first year of college. So I had to relearn that safety and trust, what it felt like. And I had to relearn that it was okay to open the refrigerator door without getting beat by your own family. The motive, that formative experience taught me something that had guided me my entire life. No matter how impossible a situation seems, you can find a way forward. You can survive, you can adapt, and you can persevere. Now, I'm proud to say that I'm a colonel. I'm a full-bird colonel. But they don't just hand that out to anybody. You become a colonel, you have to deliver. And Kansas deserves someone who can deliver. That's the kind of leadership that I bring to Congress. I guess I'm out of time. Thanks a lot, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Gilbert, and I'm running for Congress against Ron Estes in the 4th District. We've got a pretty packed primary here, but this is exciting. I want to thank everybody for showing up. This is an amazing turnout. So my life started a little bit difficult. I was born into an abusive family in Wichita. I then bounced around to several foster care homes where you just kind of learn to handle things yourself. I got adopted when I was 10 and reunited with my brother and sister. And all of these things have instilled a fight in me that doesn't quit. I don't know how to stop. I know how to find new ways to get goals, and I will continue to pull after everything like a dog with a bone. So we have a fight ahead of us, and this is a fight that I'm ready to take to run Estes. I get to represent you guys because I am you guys. I didn't buy this seat. I don't have tons of money. I'm a renter. I'm just a normal guy. And if we want to change politics, it starts with putting normal people in, not just suits. Thank you.
Thank you to the Kansas Democratic Party for including me today. I'm Lauren Reinhold. I'm a lawyer, a single mom, and until recently I was a proud public servant. I've always worked for the American people, running Social Security programs, serving as a public interest attorney, and fighting for labor rights as a union officer. When DOJ pushed hardworking employees like me out the door, I decided if Washington won't fight for people, then I will. I'm running to represent all Kansans of the 1st Congressional District to unseat Tracy Mann, who has spent his life enriching and protecting the wealthy. He ignores his constituents, he refuses to take any real stands on foreign policy or federal overreach, and votes to cut funding for our health and safety. Boo. I'm committed to running this race full time to defeat him too. I've already traveled thousands of miles across the 1st District listening to countless Kansans. The common denominator here, we are all fed up. Fed up with a government that puts corporations first while our communities struggle. Fed up with a system that makes us work harder for less. Fed up with Congress accepting its own gridlock as the norm. So I'm running to take back prosperity for Kansans and demand accountability in our government. I'm excited to talk to you all today.
Hey everybody, I'm Cole Lemke. I'm running for Kansas Congressional District 4. I'm a 28-year-old foster care social worker and sergeant in the U.S. Army Reserves. I was born to a U.S. Army infantryman and a Medicaid specialist in Wichita, Kansas, and I spent my life in Roseville, Kansas before going to KU and getting my degree in music education before coming back to become a foster care social worker. I did all the right things. I went to college, I did good in high school, went to college, joined the Army, and all I have for it is a couple $100 because the American Dream wasn't available to me, because it's not available to anybody in my generation. I am here fighting today for the working class. We need to be putting more progressive policies in place because universal health care is important. We can't keep letting insurance companies get away with charging us thousands on thousands of dollars for mediocre care. We can't keep allowing our trans family members and friends to be treated as less than human. I know what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for working class Americans because I am one. Combined, I only make $45K a year. I'm under the median salary of my own congressional district. I know what it means to live paycheck to paycheck, and I'm tired of it. I'm here to help everybody, and I would love your support going forward to help me continue fighting for it. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I hope that today was fantastic for everybody, and that everybody has a fantastic day going forward. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, let's get to the questions here. Again, we have 90 seconds for each answer. We will start with Katie. First question here. Okay, Trump's big, beautiful bill is hurting everyday Kansans. What will you do in Washington to restore protections for working families?
So first of all, we have to bring down the cost of healthcare. We traveled, I was living in Kansas, I had an opportunity to travel across the 4th District and 1st District last year and actually talk to real Kansans about how the big, beautiful bill is impacting their lives. And that is the #1 thing we heard. They were worried about rural hospital closures, and they're worried about their health insurance premiums going up. One individual in particular in Derby told us that he was still 2 years out from being eligible for Medicare, and his health insurance premiums were going to jump by $24,000 in the year 2026, and that is unacceptable. So we need to extend the ACA subsidies But that is not a permanent fix. We need to be looking at how to fix healthcare for Kansans across the board. The second thing we need to do is do something about these tariffs. I work with some farmers in Butler County. One in particular, my buddy Miles Wilhite, and he said that last year was his worst year on record after 3 decades of farming. And you want to know why? It's because our president took their markets away. That is the power of Congress to levy tariffs. It is not within the prerogative of the president, and we need to do something about these tariffs so that our farmers have their markets back again.
Thank you, Katie. Colin? What would you do in Washington to restore protections for working families?
For working families.
Same question.
So there's a couple of things that we can talk to specifically here, but for myself, the first thing I always think of working families is unions. I'm a union man. I spent a lot of years working for unions and with unions, and now I'm a bargainer for UAKU with the University of Kansas. We just achieved our first contract this week. I'm incredibly proud of the team that did that negotiation. We strengthen unions. We support the PRO Act, which is an act that will restore the strength of unions, the ability to bargain fairly for the ability to get what they deserve out of those jobs. That by itself will go a long way towards restoring the power of the working class and restoring the economic vibrancy of the working class. Beyond that, what working families really need is a fair deal with their own economy and their own government. And they haven't had that for a long time, but they sure as hell haven't had it this year. We can do a few things to make those environments easier, and the most important, the most immediate is in the trade wars. Because once those trade wars have stopped, once the new tariffs have been pulled back, we restore some predictability to the markets, to jobs, and that makes it easier, not just for business owners, but for people who work in those businesses, who create those businesses, who want to be entrepreneurs and bring some of the vibrancy back, especially to the small towns that make up the first district. So first, we're going to bring back union strength to make sure those jobs are real jobs, someone can make a living in and build a family in. Second, we make sure they've got a path forwards. If they want to do something else, if they want to build a business, if they want to create something new, that it's possible to do that without chaos and incompetence, destroying the economic ability. Thank you.
Same question.
Thank you. So I've lived my whole life paycheck to paycheck. I don't know about you guys. I know how important it is to protect for those protections that our working families are carrying the weight of an economy that is not working for them. First step in restoring policies that directly help working families, I'm going to work to support legislation that caps prescription drug costs and allows Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices that directly lower costs for seniors and our families. I'll support legislation that brings back expanded child tax credit. How about affordable child care? I'll also work to protect Social Security and Medicare, and I'm definitely opposing privatization of Social Security. I want to make sure these programs remain fully funded for the long term, and that involves raising the cap. Finally, I'll support tax reforms that shift the burden onto the folks that have more money, right? Tax the rich. More importantly, our areas are being impacted directly. I got the opportunity to go out to Pratt. I got to go to local hospitals. We've already had one closed. I've been to every county in our district. And the big ugly bill took over $500 billion over the next 9 years away from Medicare and Medicaid. That absolutely needs to be reversed so that that money can come back into our rural hospitals. We don't have the threat of another rural hospital closing down.
So the big beautiful bill is just the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not the entire problem. So when we talk about working class families, I think I can speak to this because I am one. There's been one time in my life that I made more than $30,000. So I understand the struggle of going paycheck to paycheck. The problem is I've worked for companies that have made millions of dollars off of my back. That's the problem that we have. As long as we allow the top 1% to slam the door on us and don't allow innovation, but they privatize everything that we have, and they focus on profits and boardrooms instead of our next generation, we will continue to be in this spot. The only way that we get out of this, first and foremost, let's raise the minimum wage. What are we doing? With rising costs of houses, groceries, and everything, it's become more and more unaffordable for us to even survive. I have to pick and choose whether I get to eat or I get to feed my dog, and that's not something that we should all have to worry about. The fact that we can go to a hospital and it costs $8 for an ibuprofen when you can buy an entire bottle for the same thing, are you kidding me? This is the world that we live in, and they're telling us that we don't have the ability to change it because we need to privatize stuff. Let's quit paying the billionaires first, and let's focus on the working class people. Let's raise those taxes. Let's spark innovation. Let's open the market again. It has been closed to us for far too long. This gatekeeping has to end. Let's focus on the lower class, because I believe that the government's job is to build the foundation for capitalism to grow off of, which means strengthening the lower class first.
The big ugly bill is stealing from working families, and it's gonna keep stealing more and more from working families. So in Congress, the short answer to that question is a fight to repeal it. That's what those of us who managed to flip the House are gonna have to do, fight to repeal it and start over. With its permanent tax cuts and the big ugly bill that is, including the unconscionable private school deductions that will harm public education, the Medicaid cuts, the cuts to our food assistance. This is a form of grift upon everyone who's not wealthy. The big ugly bill is disgusting, repeal it, repeal it. And as as other panelists up here have stated, and honestly, I wish we could all work together in Congress, because I think the six of us could get a lot done. We need to take it a step further and start paying workers a living wage, like everyone said, and strengthen labor laws, whether that's the PRO Act or some version of the PRO Act. I worked for the NLRB for a time during my federal career, and I saw how powerless they are to enforce our labor laws. It's terrible. They're a wonderful group, that wonderful agency with a beautiful mission and a long, lovely history and powerlessness. So, in short, it's gonna take a lot of work to undo the mess. Whoever manages to flip the House, flip the Senate, we've gotta do it. But I'll never, if I'm elected to Congress, I will never stop fighting against our upside down system of taxation, wages, and labor that is unfair, just patently unfair to all of us.
So when it comes to the big beautiful bill, everybody's had a lot of bullet points. I'm the last person. Gotta try to find some. I come from a family of a lot of nurses. My partner is personally a nurse. My aunt's a nurse. Two aunts are nurses. My grandmother's a nurse. It means something to me. And when Rock Regional Health Center in Derby, Kansas shuts down early January, it means something. When Pratt Regional Hospital out in Pratt says that they're down so much money that they're in jeopardy, and that hospital and that outpost of medical care might shut down, that's an issue. Over $1 trillion of Medicaid and shit money has been taken out of our system because of the big beautiful bill. We need to tackle all the problems, but we need to be rebuilding and making sure that these hospitals and these medical outposts of these rural communities don't go away. We can't afford for our own people to have to survive an hour ambulance drive to Wichita, Kansas. It's not possible. The golden hour doesn't last that long. So we need to be fighting this in every capacity of all bullet points, but I know that from my family, we've been seeing so many strains in the medical community with us. So thank you.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and just start with you, this next question. So each of you are running for office, challenging an incumbent Republican. What is the difference between you and the current incumbent? What is the difference? What's something that differentiates yourself? If I can get it out.
Well, we've all seen our messes. Actually, no, we haven't. Actually, no, you're right. No, I know what it means to serve my country. I know what it means to be the child of someone who serves their country. I know what it's like to not have a family member and my own father in my house for a majority of my life. He was gone for Operation Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom. And when he came back, he wasn't the same person. I know what it's like to have somebody constantly just tell horrible leadership like Trump, just constantly just giving him general thumbs up to do whatever he wants, and it's exhausting. I know that I am working class through and through. I know that I can stop this argument of left versus right and rebuild it top versus bottom. Because there's a lot more of us than anybody up in Washington, D.C. who are just nothing but financial elites and lobby all day and out to get whatever they want. I know I have the ability to actually shape public discussion to make sure that working class unity, working class discussion, and working class victory can happen. Thank you.
So, yeah, Tracy Mann is the congressman I'm challenging. Not only is he lying about how we're actually doing economically, not only is he refusing to answer questions, he doesn't get anything done. He's in his third congressional term, so he's about 5 years in, but hasn't passed a single bill into law. We can't have people in Congress who are not doing their job, not working. It is unconscionable that he sits there and does not have an opinion, say, about the killings in Minnesota, that he doesn't have an opinion about any of the wars that Trump's gotten us into, and his co-sponsored bills haven't passed either. So in contrast, I have been a public servant. I've been in the trenches at 2 different agencies and at other organizations, and I know what the red tape is, how to cut through it, and how to get things done. Let's make things simple, get down to brass tacks, and just demand that our Congress get things done.
Well, I think we understand what it's like to watch somebody buy a position and be a talking point for the party. For far too long, we played party politics, and I believe that Congress has lost the point. They think that they work for Donald Trump, they work for the executive branch, when they work for you and me. This is our house, and it's time that we take it back. For far too long, big money has bought elections. Corporations have run our entire country, and I'm sick of it. So if we want to see something different, then we need to be different. We need to vote different. That's the important part. We gotta quit looking at campaign funds as if it's the only thing that matters. This is what we do. This is how we change stuff. We sit here and we talk to people, we get to know the candidates, and we pick the person that votes for us. And if you can't find somebody up here that works for you, then I challenge you, please come up here and sit with us. Because we need it. What we have is just old money and lazy people who are holding on to a seat. They don't give a shit about you. I think it's so sick and tired of party politics. I think all of us can sit here, even as Democrats, and understand that they let us down. We shouldn't be in this spot right now if we had people working for you. So let's take our house back, let's take our country back, and let's focus on the people.
The difference between me and Ron is this: I show up, I listen, I care. I see this as a continuation of my service to my country. I served 31 years in our military. I took an oath to the Constitution to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. None of those things that my opponent does. So I've been in this race since October. I put in the work. I've gone all over the district. I've been in every county multiple times. So I attended community meetings, meeting with the people. I've had listening sessions. I've had public roundtables. We talked about all the specific issues. I got my ears wide open. My campaign is also forming advisory boards on for those groups, and so that I can be informed and I know how Kansas wants to be represented. I believe that's a far, far cry from what Brown Estes has been doing. He just shuts his doors. He doesn't listen to you. He hasn't since August of 2017. And last thing, I went to war for our country. I served our country for 31 years. Ron certainly hasn't done that. Okay, it takes a high level of integrity and accountability to be able to get the mission done. How many missions has Estes got done? How many bills has he passed into law? 1. And it was naming the Mitchell Speedway or Spillway. That's it. He has done no substantive legislation at all, and he sponsored multiple bills. I'm going to get in the Congress and actually get things done and make things happen. Thank you.
I work hard to pay my mortgage because nobody's gonna do it for me. Tracy Mann is a multi-millionaire landlord who occasionally shows up in Congress to get his picture taken and vote the way he's told to vote. That's the most obvious difference. But the most important difference is he does not care what that vote does. He doesn't care what it does to his neighbors. He doesn't care what it does to the rest of Kansas. He doesn't care what it does to the rest of the world, as long as it serves his interests, makes the party happy, gets him more qualified to one day go to the Senate or take some other easy, no-fight election. No, I care. I care so much that I've been spending the last week working my connections in the federal government to build alliances with people who left USAID when it was destroyed so that I can have specific plans to rebuild it and bring that crown jewel back to Kansas, restore what was lost. Whereas Tracy Mann was happy to watch it get kicked to death because it was good for the party, because he did not care. Nobody talks to me and walks away thinking that guy doesn't care. They may walk away thinking that guy cares too much, but that's okay. That I can live with. Tracy Mann will never be confused with me. Because what he's told, doesn't care what the consequences are. I do what's right because I know what the consequences are.
What differentiates me from Ron Estes is that I show up. But I didn't just start showing up last week when I filed my paperwork to run for office. I started showing up last March when DOGE was decimating our federal government, when USAID was being dismantled, and I joined with my colleagues in Wichita to start an organization called Leading Kansas to show up for the people a year ago when it mattered. We have traveled throughout this state, we've hosted town halls, we've done coffee conversations, and that was all before I decided to run for office because Kansans deserved a platform to be heard. Not when I was running for office, but when all of this crazy stuff was happening in 2025. So I think the biggest thing that differentiates me from Ron Estes is that I will show up. I have shown up. I will continue to show up, and I will listen, fight, and deliver for the people of Kansas.
All right, we're going to talk about tariffs here. We heard it a little bit ago. In addition to making goods more costly, tariffs have made life harder for Kansas farmers and ranchers. What will you do to support them in the face of tariffs? And we'll just go right down the line. Sorry, with that. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so that's right. What will you do to support farmers and ranchers in the face of tariffs right now?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing we need to do is do away with the tariffs, right? Congress has completely capitulated its power of tariff to the executive branch, and we've got to reclaim that power. So that's the first thing that I would do. I also think that right now our small farmers are suffering not only because of the tariffs and the fact that they don't have the markets, but they're suffering because people aren't looking out for them and their health care. Not just on the affordability side of things and access to health care, but when we're talking about deregulation of pesticides like Roundup, which we just saw from the president a couple weeks ago, that's impacting farmers' lives, right? I think right now Kansas and other states in the Great Plains have the highest rates of Parkinson's, and that's largely because of what we're putting into our fields, onto our foods. We've got to start protecting our farmers, not only on the economic side of things, but we've got to start valuing their lives, because guess what? They're feeding America and the world.
So I mentioned tariffs earlier because that's an extremely important issue to me, very obvious issue, and it's a sort of constitutional order, which is something that as a lawyer and a teacher I really prefer. But the other way we can support farmers by restoring constitutional order is ending the war in Iran, because the Straits of Hormuz are one of the major shipping points for fertilizers, and while those are closed or risky, we're going to see input costs spike for people who need that. And so that's two easy things we can do in office to start to bring those costs down. But beyond that, we've got to have positive ideas beyond just don't let Trump do this stuff. And the idea that I've been working on the hardest, that I think really has a chance to do a significant amount of good for rural Western Kansas, especially in the first district, is to fight the corporatization, the amalgamation of farms and ag operations. Right now, it is so easy for a big farming operation to outcompete smaller family-owned neighbors because they've got those economies of scale. And one way we can fight that is by rebalancing federal farm aid to prefer those farms that are owned by people who live in the community. ideally on the farm itself, a family operation, but we can also do something where they live within 100 miles, 150 miles, and that way we give an incentive to ownership in the community and restore some of the population to those western towns, which benefits all those farmers and those ranchers, because every person who stays in the community is another customer for the diner. There's another patient in the hospital, another nurse in the hospital, potentially, a teacher, a student. Those towns need that vibrancy, that life. And we restore that by trying to bring back ownership from REITs and Dallas and keep it in the community. So you've got people on the farm instead of just big corporate operations.
So I had the privilege of spending some time with a lot of farmers in our district in multiple counties, from Kingman to Pratt to Comanche, all over the place, Cowley, multiple times. And I asked them, I wanted to know what their concerns were, and they're losing their customer. They lost USAID, big customer for Kansas farmers. They lost China, not just the month of September, but for a long time, for soybeans and Milo and things like that. They don't have those customers anymore, and China is now building up infrastructure in Brazil and Argentina to replace our farmers as where they purchase their goods. And then here we are, we have an administration giving, what, $40 billion to Argentina? How does that make sense for our farmers? And tariffs are compiling that problem. Maybe tariffs are the cause of that, removing that customer base from us. And then we go to war in Iraq. The straits are in danger of being closed down, things like that. Well, I worked on the Iran plan. I worked in Central Command headquarters for 4.5 years, specifically on the Iran war plan. I war gamed it every 6 months for 4.5 years. I know exactly how we should have engaged in that war so that we don't endanger our waterways, so we can get our crops around the world, so that we're not impacted. Guess what we're doing? We took that plan and threw it in the shredder. I know it wasn't a chandelier bathroom for a while, but now it's in the shredder. And he's doing whatever's in his crazy head on what he thinks he's supposed to be doing with zero endgame strategy. So I'll get in and put a stop to all that.
When I was adopted at 10, I was fortunate enough to live in a small rural community of less than 3,000 people. So from 10 to 35, I lived in a small farming community. I fully understand what's going on. We had 100 head of cattle that we ran. I understand that while tariffs are making a huge impact on us, the biggest issue that we're having is corporations buying up our land. If we want to have an opportunity to move forward, then we need to quit selling our land to foreign countries and private corporations. If we allow our working class farmers to actually compete against each other, we'd have an opportunity to actually change some things. So I think that, we have ingredients that we're shipping out across the world. We have the ability to, one, expand our farmland. I believe that if we legalize marijuana, we could have a cash crop that could go a long way towards helping our farmers. I think that would help our state just in general. So I believe there's a lot of stuff that we can do, but first and foremost, we've got to get money out of this stuff.
Well, I think first thing is Congress needs to take back its power and say, as many of the other candidates on the stage have said here, say, tariffs are up to us, Trump. I'm afraid what we're gonna have is this, even with the court order defeating the first round of tariffs, I think we're gonna have what I think of as the tariff treadmill. He's gonna keep trying it over and over again. Trump is obsessed with tariffs. So I would like to see us beat the tariffs, first of all, and have some common sense policy with that, and ultimately give refunds to the right people, not corporations, but to small businesses, ranchers and farmers and individual consumers. But in the face of that, as the question says, what would we do in the face of tariffs if we're stuck with tariffs? I think we need to pass a farm bill. The farm bill has been kicked down the road since 2018, and we need a modernized farm bill that will address water issues, will address all of the market issues, address immigration issues to some extent, to dovetail with immigration reform. And I think Congress is kicking this down the road just like immigration, because they don't want solutions. They want regular people like us, regular farmers, regular ranchers, to live in chaos so they can control them.
Tariffs are only one small part of this issue. The truth is that this has been going on for decades now. Family farming is one of the few oddities of our cultural touchstones. Sure, it's not as efficient as a mega corporation doing industrial scale farming, but it's crucial to our identity as a country and our communities. It helps build our local, it helps build our local markets. It helps keep families afloat who are living out in, smaller communities and who are trying to provide food for our American people. We need to not only get rid of taxes, we need to provide more aggressive subsidies for farmers whenever they have bad years. Because right now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they have that on their website. You can go through the U.S. Department of Agriculture website. You can see all the subsidies that they claim to give, but they're always too little and they're always way too late when farmers already have to end up selling all their land. We need to have a much more effective, much more aggressive strategy for subsidizing these farmers and these families so they never even have to get to that point. Because the bad farm years will happen. It's inevitable. That's just life with climate change. We have to actually be caring about these people because they feed us. It's the most simple reciprocal system ever. And yet we keep having these elites that take that for granted. They love selling, or they love getting these farmland plots sold to mega corporations and industrial farmers so they can, reduce the cost of production by 7 cents. So we need to be more aggressive in how we treat our farmers better. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, we will have there's enough time for our closing, so our final statements here, so we'll just go down the line starting to pull, and then we'll just work our microphone down, and you have 90 seconds to do your final closing.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for letting me be in front of you, for being here. It means the world to me. Again, I am not running a big campaign here. I want to run a big campaign. That's the dream. No, I'm blessed to have been here. I'm less than a month into my campaign. I've already had a lot of support, not a ton of support, but I've had a lot of support from other working class Americans. I've raised just over maybe $3,500. I'll be very transparent with my money because American people deserve to know that. I know that dollar for dollar, I'm the most productive candidate when it comes to spending my money and making sure I value your contribution to me. So I need your support, whether that is social media, word of mouth to families and friends, volunteering, or even your financial donation. That would mean the world to me to keep going, to keep advocating for the working class. My gold standard is $10. I know you're not donors. I understand the value of a single dollar. So any support we can give from people to keep going and advocating for people who need it most, people who make even less than me. Because the thing is, I live a somewhat decent and stable life, and there are people who are even lower on the pay scale than me that are truly struggling, not only in my congressional district, but around this nation. So help me, help us. Please put any support you can. I appreciate you so much. Take care.
Thank you all for being here for us today. This has been really wonderful. And our state is worth fighting for. And I'm grateful we're all in this fight together, and we're all going to bring more people into this fight. I know I'm not super polished. I'm not going to awe you with some perfect speech that's memorized. And I may not look like your average politician because I'm not. I've spent my life working for the American people, working as a union officer and in the federal government and a public interest attorney. I've been fighting for Kansas families, workers, students, seniors, and while other people I graduated from law school with or other lawyers chased big paychecks, selling themselves to polluters and big pharma and other corporate interests, but I always chose the public interest way. And in Congress, I will fight to tax the ultra wealthy, raise wages, scrap the cap, end Citizens United, and reform immigration. I know what it's like to face enormous medical bills, battle rising costs for my family, and lose hope for our economic security. So I'm asking you to stand with me, to raise our voices against the grift, take back our government so it works for the people, not big corporate interests. Thank you for having me here today.
I'd like to thank everybody for showing up today. It's been amazing. So the common thread through everything that I have, it's a three-pronged approach to fixing this country. It starts with accountability. Without that, we're gonna be in this mess again. We have to hold them accountable. After that, we can start fixing the affordability issue. I know that that's a big thing that Democrats are running on, but if we don't fix the cause, then we're never gonna change the effect. So let's put it in the right order. After which, I wanna focus on adaptability. There are certain things that we can do, like legalizing fresh crops, that we can use for government money. We could create, which is something I want to do, a high-speed line that goes from the Wichita area to the Kansas City area. When we have the ability to have a party train going to the Kansas City Chiefs for another Super Bowl party, it seems like something we all enjoy, especially while we're smoking a joint and doing it. We need to move forward. Conservative doesn't mean moving backwards. Progressive means doing something right and caring about the people. If you're sick and tired of politics, then quit putting in politicians. Hold us accountable. Make them stand for something. Quit with the rhetoric and the bullshit that you hear from everybody else and hold people accountable. I have the ability on my website, I will be doing this. Everything that I have to say, I'm gonna back it up. I'll throw tax returns on there. I'll show you my foster care records. I'll show you my medical records to show you the abuse. I wanna be transparent. That's what we need, is honesty in politics. We need a change. And if you want to change, then you have to do something different. We can't continue to bring up the same people and do the same things and expect something different. So let's go make a change. Please, join my team.
So listen, folks, we're all Democrats here, right? Whole room pretty much. All of us who are running, we generally want the same things for Kansas. We've pretty much been saying the same things over and over. But here's the thing. My fellow candidates, pretty much most of them come from an activist background. Where I come from, actually getting the mission done background. Don't get me wrong, please don't. Our activists in this state actually matter. They're very important. They push the conversation, they demand accountability, and raise their voice loud when something isn't right and the world is a better place because of them. But serving in Congress is different than organizing outside of it. Congress, you have to build coalitions. You have to negotiate. You have to sit across from someone that you disagree with and build common ground and find a path forward. You have to know when to hold the line and know when to bring people together to move that ball down the field. Ask yourself, who has spent the time traveling around this district, talking and listening to the people of the 4th District? I'll be able to sit at that table, informed, on day one and understand how to navigate complex systems, budgets, because I've been doing that my entire life. We need to flip this district that has been Republican for over 30 years. We can't keep voting for the same primary candidate over and over and expecting different results, similar to what Brian said. Let's win this seat. Let's get back to work, vote for me, Chris Carmichael, in the primary, and let's deliver for Kansas.
He's right. We all pretty much want the same thing, but our goal is to transform the state. And Democrats by ourselves can't do that yet. There's not enough of us. That's why I'm so impressed with the work groups like Leading Kansas have done, because they're speaking not just to Democrats, but independents, even to moderate Republicans, about things that we all care about, because that's how we transform the state. My worry is, for decades and decades and decades, we put up candidates who go out into the district and say, tax the ultra wealthy. And the district says, no. That's not good enough. But if we go out and we have ideas, and we talk about ways to preserve community ownership of farms, we talk about tariff exemptions, and we talk about housing policy that restores property values in small towns, go to my website and you'll see specific real-world policies that are developed with experts that actually make a difference in people's lives. The benefit then is people see that and they think, that's what a Democrat is. It's not somebody who just chance tax the wealthy, it's somebody with ideas, somebody who cares and has a plan to get to a difference. Because that's who we are. That's what it means to be progressive, maybe real progress. And we can do that. And we can make a bigger Democratic community in Kansas once we go out and we inspire people. We show them what Democrats can be. That's what I bring to the table. That's why I hope for your vote in the primary and the general election. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank all of you for being here today and for the folks that joined online for giving us this opportunity to introduce ourselves. When I was conceiving of my closing remarks today, I wanted to share with you guys some things that maybe don't come through on my campaign bio on my website. And two things came to mind. One, I am rarely the smartest person in the room, but I will outwork just about anybody. And it is time that working Kansans had a leader in Washington, D.C. that works just as hard as they do. Number two, if you look at the total body of my work, both professionally and in my volunteer realm, over the last 2 decades, there is a common theme, and the common theme is this. I am often the person that is standing up in the room for the folks that don't have a seat at the table. Whether it was advocating on behalf of victims of violence at NCAI, standing up to make sure that our employees were paid what they were worth at our family business, championing collective bargaining rights for Local 2612 on the Cedar County Fire District Steering Council, or co-founding Leading Kansas because our leaders were not listening to their constituents. I am consistently the one amplifying the voices of folks who are too often unheard. Right now, the folks in the 4th District of Kansas, their voices are not being heard, and I intend to change that. I intend to go to Washington to be the voice of the people in the 4th District, and with your support, I will beat Ron Estes in November. I'm Katie J. Tyndall, and thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you all for joining us today or this morning. All of our congressional candidates are here for you to meet and talk to. Thank you so much. The chair will have a quick question for you as well.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask all of our candidates to stand up so we can get a picture of you all together. Stand up, go ahead and slide in. We're great. Act like we're Democrats. We love each other. Everyone get your cameras out. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to hold the candidates 1 second. 1 second. First of all, we have an ASL interpreter, and we thank her so much. Thank you. I have a few audience instructions that are separate from what you will hear from our moderator. Please do not walk across the center aisle, not here to find yet. Once we are live streaming, every time someone gets up into that center aisle, we lose the candidates and see your beautiful face all over YouTube in big depth. So please, once we get started, if you need to leave, exit the sides, go behind the camera. Please do not use the center aisle once we get started. We only have 2 candidates for our Secretary of State race, so we're going to give each of them 5 minutes to speak. So right now we're going to hear from Sam Lane. Right before we get started, Sam, please welcome Sam Lane. Democrats, it's early, but please welcome Sam Lane. We put his name on the line.
I'm here because I'm supposed to tell you my name is Sam Lane, but that doesn't really matter. I'm supposed to say I came from a working class family, single mother. That doesn't matter either. What matters, SB 244, you know this one, right? I call it the Piss Police Bill. This is a bill that invalidated 1,700 Kansas driver's licenses overnight. And side note, the people who invalidated those licenses, don't let them ever whine again about cancel culture on the left. That matters. That matters even if you're not trans yourself, even if you don't have trans friends, which by the way, I do. That matters because you know it's not going to end there. Sooner or later, they're going to find excuses to take people off the voter rolls. What matters is we have a Secretary of State who is willing to stand up, find everyone who has taken off those voter rolls, talk to them, and get them back on and eligible to vote as quickly as possible. What matters, we have a say. What matters is HB 2438. You know this one? Cybersecurity bill, only .gov addresses for voter registration. What matters is we have a Secretary of State who's willing to work with sites like kansasvotes.org to make sure they're up to code and there's no bottlenecks in the voter registration process. What matters? Federalization of our elections. We need a candidate who's going to stand up to the 24th Amendment and say, if you require us to buy a $120 passport in order to vote, that's a poll tax, we will sue to get that overturned. Doesn't matter if it's the SAVE Act, doesn't matter if it's the president acting unilaterally. We need a Secretary of State candidate who, when ICE shows up at the polls harassing American citizens on their way to vote, someone who's going to tell them, voter intimidation is illegal, and you have the right to remain silent. I'm Sam Lane, and I'm here to hold the line.
I am losing my voice. Just a couple quick announcements, and we'll introduce our moderator and our candidates. You've been getting these things handed out to you. Everyone get one of these. If you haven't, they're in the lobby. I want to tell you what they are. It's by Prairie Progress Civic Action, and it says, "Greetings from Kansas." On the back, they are pre-addressed to Senator Roger Marshall at 1040 Solon Drive, Sarasota, Florida, 34234. We are sending these to his house in Florida. I want to say, Prairie Progress Civic Action, if you don't have one, they're handing them out in the back and in the lobby. Please fill it out. We want to flood his house and let him know that we know he lives in Florida, not Kansas. Okay, with that, is Ethel Edwards still in the room? Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it in the next session. We'll do it in the next session. So please welcome your moderator for today, Adam Ordinas. Adam has killed himself this week. We'll come along.
All right, can we have our candidates come up to the stage, please? And then, do we have any veterans in the room? Can we please have you stand so you can be recognized? Any veterans, anyone that has served, please give them a round of applause, all veterans. Thank you for your service. And then we will remain standing and we will reach out to allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. All right, I want to start by thanking our sponsors, Middle of the Road and Smart, thank you, and also Act Blue. We will quickly go through the rules here, just so that way everybody understands what we're going to be going through here. So we'll give each candidate 2 minutes to open, give themselves an opportunity to say who they are and explain themselves. They will have 90 seconds or a minute and a half to answer each question, and then they will have 90 seconds to also close. We do understand that we have supporters in the crowd, so it's okay to clap or small cheers, but we want to make sure that it's civil so everybody has a chance to hear their answers and keep a good flow here. So we do not want any crosstalk. This is a forum, not a full debate. This is an opportunity for the candidates to explain themselves and answer the questions. So again, no crosstalk. Keep the clapping to a minimum if you can. No yelling, no signs, but we do understand that they're supporters and we're okay with that. So a few claps with it is okay. So again, no yelling, let's just enjoy these answers and enjoy our candidates, and let's get right to it. So starting down the line here, we'll just go down the line and introduce yourself, and after that, just pass the microphone to the next candidate.
Good morning, my name is Jason Hart, and I'm running for United States Senate against Roger Marshall. I'm Kansas born. I do have immigrants in my history. They're Swedes, let's be fair. And all I would say about our immigrants is look what they produce in our communities. As a kid, my family was a foster family. I got to see the bruises, burns, and broken hearts at an early age when I was 5. We had 10 kids over the course of 7 years, anywhere from 2 nights to 2 years. I learned about my privilege at an early age, and I have used it for justice. That means genuinely fighting for someone's interest and not just your own. For more than 2 decades, actually calculated it's 21 years, my career could go have a drink, maybe it needs to. I have served Kansas, pursuing justice for victims and survivors of child sexual exploitation, domestic violence, and sex trafficking. It is hard work to do, to talk to kids about their very worst day, and to do it in front of 12 people that don't even know them. It's heart-wrenching work to see the recordings and crime scenes and know that you got to do something about it. But I gotta tell you, it is righteous work. It is work that gives them a voice to protect and defend them right here in Kansas. I'm coming to you from having been an assistant United States attorney where I was assigned to do Project Safe Childhood cases. I have been there for roughly 16 years. March 14th would be my 16th anniversary. I wasn't a slouch while I was there, and you can come talk to me about my accolades and all the work I did on the national scene. And then I'm also a national security attorney for the office. But what I want to tell you is I have cultivated relationships across the state, and I intend to use them to defeat Roger Marshall. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to thank the Kansas Democratic Party, and thank you, Adam, for moderating this panel. And thank you all for coming. This is a great crowd. I was a little worried folks would drop off. I'm Christy Davis. I'm a 5th generation Kansan, and I've worked in rural, urban, and suburban Kansas. I worked in every county in the state on projects ranging from broadband to wastewater, hospitals, childcare, nursing homes, all the things that are now being cut. I served as a White House appointee at USDA Rural Development, and in that role, I managed about $1.3 billion in projects all over the state. Before that, I created a program, an economic development program, that has had an economic impact statewide of about $10 billion. And that's a lot when you're looking at small communities all over Kansas. That's had an impact in every county in the state. I have spent my career serving Kansas communities. And the programs that I helped with at the state level survived somehow the Brownback administration because we had support from folks at the grassroots level, as well as some other folks too. I'm running for U.S. Senate because hardworking Kansans deserve a senator who works as hard as they do, who isn't afraid to show up and understands the responsibility of a U.S. Senator is to use the power of the purse to help the people who need it and to hold the executive branch to account. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to the forum.
Hi, I am Sandy Spiedel-Newman. I also would love to thank the chair and thank everybody for coming out. We really appreciate that. We've got a lot of us, needless to say, because this is a really important time. I just want you to know I'm ready, willing, and able to send Roger Marshall back to Florida for good. I was born in Topeka right here. I grew up in Overland Park. I have family throughout Kansas, be it Oxford, Emporia, Roland Park, Overland Park, and my dad's family homesteaded and farmed in Burlingame. I went to Shawnee Mission North 40 years after my dad went there when it was Shawnee Mission Rural. I did just about everything there, including debating, much to my mother's chagrin. I also played volleyball, ran the 1.5 mile, was a student government officer, did Girls State, and then represented Kansas for the first time at Girls Station. And then I got a scholarship to study economics at the University of Chicago, got my MBA at Northwestern, and then went to a .com because it was 2000, seemed like the right thing to do. 2002, not quite the right thing to do, got laid off. Then I got hired by American Express and joined their financial advisor division. That was spun off in 2005 and became Ameriprise Financial. I worked there for 22 years in doing all types of leadership roles and leading key elements that were reported to the street on a quarterly basis. In 2005, I took stock and said, you know what, I need to pivot from this and do something that gives back and does more. I wasn't quite sure what it was. And then I saw Roger Marshall's infamous town hall, and I saw him walk out on Kansans, people that reminded me of my cousins who voted for Trump and Marshall, you know, and so it was so bad that I thought, oh, hell to the no. You work for us. And we need somebody to fight for us and to show him that. And I'm that person. So why does this really matter? We need to create a new normal. We need to be willing to reach across the table and have the tenacity to keep reaching across the table until we make a difference. Kansas needs a senator and deserves a senator who will fight for us and our values. Kansas deserves better.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Ann Perelger. I'm not an elected official, I'm not a business person, I'm not a political insider. In fact, the biggest deal I ever made was my mortgage. I bet a lot of y'all feel that way. I'm a solo immigration lawyer, I'm a former teacher and a mother of two, I'm the wife of a naturalized citizen from India, and I'm a concerned citizen who's, to be quite honest, I'm still mad as hell, and I'm still not gonna take it from these people anymore. As most of y'all probably know, I was at that Oakland town hall when our current alleged senator ran out on us, his constituents, and I told him that day that I was gonna take his job, and I meant it. Because here's the thing, y'all, America, at least the one that I grew up believing in, promises that if you work hard and you play by the rules, you get to live with dignity. But that promise has been broken. Right now, tech billionaires and multinational corporations with investors halfway around the world have captured our America, our Kansas. They don't care about our communities because they're not part of our communities. Most of them haven't even heard of our communities. To them, we're all just numbers on a page, dollar signs. They blocked or busted up our unions. Farmers have been squeezed by corporate consolidations. Prices keep going up. Profits are soaring. And that's great for them, but it keeps getting harder for all of us. They've captured our government. They've captured our economy and our culture. If we don't take our government back, if we don't take our country back, if we don't shift power back to workers, farmers, to we the people, we will lose our country. We will lose our way of life. But if we're going to do it, we, as Democrats, we got to stop looking back and start looking forward. We need bold new ideas. We need a positive movement. We got to define ourselves not by what we're against anymore, but by what we're for, by fighting for the people and the communities we care about. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we do that, how we take the power back for us and ours, how we break up modern monopolies, how we get to universal health care, and how we restore the promise of America. I want to thank the party for hosting all this. I want to thank all of my colleagues for being here and putting in the work. And I want to thank all of y'all for all the work you have done and continue to do to make this country a better place. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've heard from a lot of great candidates. I'm so excited to be in this room with all of you fellow Democrats. So good morning, friends, neighbors, fellow Kansans, all of you loved ones. My name is Eric Murray. I'm born and raised in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. I'm the son of a public school teacher who sits right here on the front row, who showed me the power of education. And what education is meant to me and every kid in my community is the promise of a better future. And I want to thank all of you, right? Because as we sit here in campaign season, we're all asking for donations. Well, guess what? Every person in this room is already invested in me through the power of public education. And so your investment in me enabled me to go to the University of Southern California on a scholarship
where I met my beautiful wife who's sitting right here in the front row. We have 4 children. I'm a husband. I'm a father. My oldest daughter is my campaign manager. She's a senior at Stanford. Again, a public education student who's fighting for public policy, engaging students, engaging community. These are the values that we stand for. These are the values that public education instilled in us. When I was at USC, I studied public health. That's value number 2, healthcare. Health is wealth. We have got to invest not only in educating our community, we've got to get our community healthy. If you don't have an education and you don't have health, how are you expected to go produce? How are you expected to work? How are you expected to live the American dream? So that is what I stand here before you today. I'm a community developer. I'm a real estate developer. I build things. And too many times our politicians see problems, or in this administration, cause problems, and then they run away, or they throw small solutions at big problems. Well, guess what? We are not going to cut our way out of these problems, loved ones. We've got to build. I build things. I build housing. I build systems that work. I build communities. We have got to invest more in our communities, not less. So we're going to talk today about a number of strategies. We're going to talk about the challenges we face. You're going to hear me talk about solutions. Because what Kansans really care about is solutions, and that's what I'm going to bring to Washington. Thank you all, and we're going to beat Roger Marshall here over the next few months. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, candidates, for your inputs, and we want to just make sure that we keep the some of the outside noise to a minimum, and let's continue to stay focused on the answers as well. And we want to try to remain seated as well if we can. So let's go ahead and start with Mr. Murray. Murray, we'll start with you actually. What are you going to do in Washington to protect marginalized communities as they come under attack?
Yeah, the reality is that our leaders are running away. They're even worse. Our leaders are creating problems. They're sowing chaos. And again, as a kid from Wyandotte County, I've seen what chaos looks like in our community. When our leaders are fighting, or they're stealing from us, or they're running corrupt and protecting corrupt systems and others, and not thinking about investing in us, right? And so I see what I see in Wyandotte County across most of the 5 counties in this state. Our population is declining. Our education systems have not been fully funded and fully invested into the way that they need to be. Our healthcare systems, when rural hospitals are closing, what does that mean for the rest of the community, for the coffee shop, for the small business, for all of those things? We see leaders who are running away from these problems, and I want to go to Washington and fight for communities like mine and like all of ours. As I've traveled this great state, I've heard from all of you that we need to rebuild our economic engine. We've got all of these, politician-created problems, from tariffs to tax policies that benefit billionaires at the expense of all of us, to policies that are tearing apart the fabric of our communities. We know that this is a country of immigrants, and protecting and standing up for folks is what we believe in. So we've got to restore our Kansas values in Washington. And as I've traveled this great state, I remind folks, 80% of Kansans, and I believe 80% of Americans, agree on 80% of things. Let's lead with those values. Let's make sure that our leaders here in Topeka and also in Washington are fighting for those values. And it's that spirit of love and care and concern for all of us that we bring. We'll talk about a lot of policies that we need to enact, but let's start with, one of the things I've learned, people need to know that you care before they care what you know. And we know how to solve these problems, and we're going to talk about those solutions. But let's start by showing every American and every Kansan in every corner of this great state that we care.
Okay, what am I going to do in Washington to protect marginalized communities? Well, first of all, I will always stand with bullies, especially when they're coming after the people that I love. And I will tell you this, I don't think there's one community on earth that I don't have somebody I love in. I will never stop fighting for people, whether it's immigrants, whether it's the LGBTQ community, or whether it's any other that these sickos might start targeting. No matter what the poll numbers show. If a candidate or public servant can only serve those who can help them get ahead, then they don't belong in that position. They don't deserve it. On immigration in particular, because it's so hot right now, we're going to have a full investigation of immigration and customs enforcement. The American people need and deserve to see everything that they have done and everything that has gone wrong. We deserve the truth. And if that investigation shows us that there's nothing in that entity worth saving, then we abolish it. And we use that money for actual immigration reform that starts our people in our country. But there must be accountability. We, the people, must see justice wherever justice is due. wherever the truth takes us. And that is what I will fight for, and that is what I will pursue.
With respect to marginalized communities, we need to look at everything that's going on. We need to have our eyes wide open with respect to this. When you look at the immigrants and you look at ICE, of course, we do need stronger borders, of course we do. But we can do it in a humane way. We are the United States of America, a country built on marginalized communities. And we need to respect that. ICE needs to be reformed, not abolished. We need to give it better training. We need to have better leadership. I know that leadership just changed, but we'll see how that plays out. We need things like no masks. We need common sense things like body cameras. And we need them to have the right goals. That's one of the big problems. Whenever you see a problem, you see something going on like this, take a step back and go, how are they being compensated? How are they being bold? They're being bold on arrests, which doesn't make any sense. They don't have to have charges or convictions. That's what they need to be bold on. So we need to look at it from a business perspective. You can do this in a lot better way. And we can actually, America always works best when the communities are taken care of. We know how to take care of our neighbors. What we have seen with some of the things going on, that people are stepping up for their neighbors. And that's something that we Kansans always do. It's something that's really important. But those types of reforms need to be done at a national level and save that money. Thank you.
I love people, and I look forward to representing all people. There's so many of you that I've had the opportunity this weekend to visit with one-on-one, and hopefully you saw that I love people. Some politicians have clung to power by marginalizing others and perpetuating hate. But I want you all to know that I'll listen and be an accomplice in ensuring everyone, especially the underdogs, are treated with basic human dignity. And that is a value I've carried through in all of the work that I've done in all Kansas communities, regardless of how much they agree with me or not. Thanks.
So for the last 21 years, my job has been standing in the breach against bullies for our marginalized communities. I want to make sure you understand this, that our marginalized communities are the communities that are targeted by the people that have been prosecuted. This is especially an important thing to me. And I know I'm pretty like the guys that do the crimes. I am acutely aware of that because they look exactly like me. But you got to stand up to the bullies, and that's what I've been doing. But you can't just do that. You also have to build community with these folks, because you have to be there and be able to hold their hand, to meet them where they are, to show them that you care and that you are an ally. And that's been my lived experience. In my church, Episcopal Church down in Wichita, where I go, we have trans kids and we have gay folk, and we love them all. Stand or kneel, do what you feel. That's what we say in the Episcopal Church. In our home, the Hart household, we've also had the lived experience. Before I ever thought I was going to be here, because honestly, this was not on my bingo card. We had a moment of crisis for some of the kids in our church, some mixed race boys who needed a place to stay. Well, that turned into 2 years of them living with us. And we got to have all kinds of interesting conversations with my two little white boys, learning things from these 3 young mixed race fellows about, well, you can't use those words, Colin and JoJo, and you can't say those things. But you got to build community, and you got to be willing to step up, stand up, and be there.
Thank you. Christy Davis, we'll start with you on this question. What is your position on women's reproductive health care?
I'm really proud to have been among the 60% of Kansans who supported reproductive rights in the vote 2022. And I want to say that includes my own county. Many of you know this, I live in a county of population of about 2,500. There are 259 registered Democrats in my entire county. That's less than 20% of the registered voters. And even in my county, That vote was about 50-50. So what that says to me is we can't count rural Kansas out. We need to work statewide. And there are more people who agree on issues than disagree when those are the focus. I feel really strongly that the people like me who care about these issues are the ones who are going to show up in the primary in 2026 because the Supreme Court is on the line. They are holding the line for reproductive rights and public education, and people are upset about it. Those are the ones that are going to show up, and I think the turnout will be very similar to what we saw in 2022. And then, again, I've been working on reproductive rights issues for many, many, many years, and I just want everyone to know, regardless, I'm not going to play games with your healthcare, reproductive rights or otherwise. Thanks.
I cannot believe that in 2026, we're still getting asked questions about whether or not a woman can make a decision about her own body. I'm beyond floored on it. Of course I'm pro-choice. I'm a pro-choice Catholic. I'm pro-women making decisions that they need to make with their doctor, with their family. Politicians should not be involved, and they should stay away from our hoo-has. That's my position.
Okay. Number one, Kansas is already running. And I have to say that, Jason, to everybody else. And I will promise you this, I never go against the will of the people of Kansas. Not when I'm their senator. Number two, and I've spent some time thinking about this overnight, because there's no good answer to this, right? Like, they want to tell us that we're anti-life because we don't want to force a decision on a mom to decide whether she's gonna go home to her 3 kids that she already has or leave 4 kids motherless. It's an impossible choice to make, and nobody but that mother, that doctor, and maybe that father need to be in that room making that decision. And also sit the hell in my doctor's office.
Yeah, I agree, loved ones. This is an easy one. We have got to protect women's rights to make their own decisions about their own bodies, okay? We do not need the same leaders in Washington that are screwing up everything in this world to be in our doctor's offices and in our schools and in our hospitals trying to make decisions on behalf of women. So, as you heard from me, I'm a girl dad. I've got 3 daughters and a strong-minded wife, and I'm sure as hell not telling them what to do, and I don't think any politician should be telling young women what to do with their bodies. So let's just end that full stop. Let's think about, though, where else are we seeing this kind of overreach? We just talked about what our government is doing to hold down marginalized communities, what our government is doing to roll back women's rights, civil rights. This has got to stop. And again, this is one Kansas already voted on. I think all of us agree that the majority of the people have spoken. Our leaders need to stop doing what is in their or their billionaire buddies or their self-interest and do what is in the best interest of Kansas. That certainly means protecting women's health care rights and protecting everyone's rights in this great country of America.
So I'm really glad we started with Christy and then Sandy and Ann, because it demonstrates the importance of why we need to have women's voices first, right? Now, this is an easy one. I probably won't take all this 9 seconds. 100%. I agree with body autonomy. It's women's right to choose. There is no moral high ground on pro-life. And I'm here to tell you exactly why there's no moral high ground, because I've seen what happens to kids who are neglected or unwanted or simply overlooked. They get targeted. And I appreciate that you're like, murder, and I don't want to be an accomplice to that. Okay, so are you going to then be an accomplice to the sexual abuse of that child later? Pick your lane. And unless we're going to care for these kids all the way, then just shut up.
Thank you. All right. going down to our last couple of questions here. We'll start with Chris. Yes, so America is very polarized. Can you describe a time where you've been successful working across the aisle with someone opposed to you?
Well, as I said, I live in a town of 900 people who mostly disagree with me on politics. But also in my work life, I know what it's like to sit across the table from hardline MAGA Republicans, hold the line, hold my line, your line, and still get stuff done for the common good. That means housing, healthcare, community development. That's the type of work that I've been doing in Kansas, knowing that there are differences here that we're divided. Most people don't agree with me on everything, but again, I have to navigate this landscape every day, and I'm pretty good at it. I've also navigated this landscape in my advocacy work in the state legislature. Many of you, especially women, are probably very familiar with Pat Proctor. I had an opportunity, I worked with Pat Proctor on an issue that we agreed on. It was a community development issue. It provided funding for low-income and community housing. If I'm able, as a woman and a leader, to work with Pat Proctor on issues, I can work with anyone. Thanks.
I always think most projects benefit from diverse perspectives. I've had the opportunity in the Fortune 250 to lead cross-organizational teams on a variety of high-level projects that required people to work together. You never said, you didn't ask who they voted for, before you said, what can you bring to the table? How can you approach this problem? How can we work together to get this done? Reaching across the table is a normal process for me, and it's something that's worked really well. Now, you always have your own advocacy, right? You always have your own goals compared to some of the competing goals of other folks, but you can typically get to a win-win. And that's what we need to do again. That's where the new normal needs to be back in Washington as we work across this. We've got to reach across. I remember a time when, people could actually disagree on a topic, which is fine, but disagreeing with the people and calling each other names has got to stop. We've got to operate with integrity, and we have to operate with respect to be able to make progress and really deliver results for these. I look forward to situations, because as we were saying, we are so much more alike than we are apart, and we can find common ground and work together to deliver solutions for the Kansas people.
The best way to reach across the aisle, and this is something we do every day on my campaign, is to throw out the entire idea of an aisle. In my community roundtables, which we're holding in every county in the state, we make it a point to invite everybody, not just the people who agree with us. Democrat, Republican, Independent, inexperienced in politics, it does not matter. Everybody is welcome at our table. So I say, throw out the old idea of us versus them, of the other side. That's what got us into this mess in the first place. The only us versus them is us, all of us, versus the elite right now. Pundits, podcasters, and politicians feed on it. All it's gotten us is Americans fighting Americans, families skipping Thanksgiving, and a bigger set of problems than we started with. But guess what, y'all? We don't have to go along with it. Because most Americans actually want the same basic things. We want to feed our families, we want to have a decent job, we want to take care of our kids, and we want our kids to have a better future than we have. These are partisan values. These are American values. These are Kansas values. And if we start there, we start working on the problems that people actually face instead of focusing on these ridiculous labels that we slap on each other, you'd be amazed at how quickly we all start finding common ground. And some of y'all have been at those roundtables with me and seen it. And we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I love this question, and I love talking to my community about the false choices that we are often given. All right, and I think we have to start by understanding That this is not about left versus right. This is not man versus woman. This is not black versus white. We're all struggling in this economy. We're all struggling because of the actions that Washington is taking in our communities. But all of the lies, all of the division, it's all a distraction from the grift, right? They're stealing our resources. They're stealing our wages. They're stealing our rights. They're stealing our love for one another and our common decency. They're working to steal our government and shred the Constitution. And we need to come together as the 99% of Americans who are not part of that grift, not part of that hate, to realize that we need to work together on solutions, right? We know that democratic policies work. We know that communities grow. We know that healthcare grows. We know that education grows. Our democratic policies work. And I've been a Democrat all my life. But the reality is when I criticize Democrats from a place of love, because our policies work so well, we often lose sight of the struggle that's happening in small towns and rural corners, right? We lose sight of what's happening in black and brown communities. We lose sight of the students that are feeling like, what happened to the American dream? So this is not a left versus right issue, loved ones. This is about solving problems and bringing us together to fight the elites and the oligarchs who are using division to steal from us, okay? So let's talk about the solutions that we bring as Democrats that uplift everyone in this economy. And I think that's how we all win in November, and this country wins for decades to come. Thank you.
So in terms of working across the aisle, well, that's literally what I've been doing in courtrooms for the last 21 years. I've been negotiating prison time. I've been negotiating restitution for victims. I've been talking with victims about what are your interests and what is your desires and the outcome. That's how you approach the thing. You approach it from what are your interests, not your positions. Because all we've been doing right now is arguing from the corners. Everybody's staked out a position and they can't get in the middle. The middle is where you need to be standing in order to bridge the gap. And I'm the middle, just so you know. I'm going to be the translator to all the Republicans that we need to bring over here. Because I look like them, I sound like them, they understand me, I can speak their language. All right? So I am your bridge, literally, to that side of the equation, which we desperately need. And Eric's 100% right when he says, it's 99% of us that agree. It's just 1% that is hosing us. And that's absolutely true. I know this from talking with my federal agents. They don't like what's going on. They would like there to be something different. And I'm giving them a voice, because while you might be a federal agent, it's hard to leave that job. It's a lot less hard to leave your job as a prosecutor, where you can go get any number of jobs. I just happen to want Roger Marshall's.
Okay, we'll go last question here, and then we'll have time for closing. Okay, Trump's DOJ has designated federal programs, including the VA and veteran services. What will you do to fight for our veterans and restore their services? And we will start with Jason. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. I want to give Christy a break. I know you can take it. So my experience with working with veterans is actually, we have what's called Central Violations Bureau in the United States Attorney's Office, where since we have a VA here, well, not here, down in Wichita, where I'm at in Wichita, we have one there, but we also have one here. But I'm not here, so, but down there, we'll have folks show up from the veterans, and they've got a ticket for something, whether they brought on some marijuana, or they brought a firearm or a pocket knife that they shouldn't have brought. These are special populations that require special service. And so what DOJ has done is all these cuts have reduced the quality of care. And then that sort of prompts us to do the lure of privatizing, which simply means, this is what privatization means. We don't want to pay for your care. We don't want to pay for your care. Well, that's BS. That is not justice. Justice, as you might have heard me say before, is genuinely fighting for someone's interests and not just your own. They fought for our interests, and we need to fight for theirs. Now, I think that starts with talking with our corporations. Amazon, Walmart, Big Tech, they all get a heck of a lot more benefit from our system of government, our infrastructure, our laws that these folks have protected. They need to pay their fair share.
Go ahead. Sorry, I thought we were going in order. With respect to the VA, I 100% agree. They fought for us. We need to fight for them. And veterans hold a special place in my heart. My birth father was in Special Forces in the Army. My grandfather, I still have his letters from World War I. And I know in Kansas, we have over 150,000 veterans. We need to make sure that the funding is restored. And veterans also have not just funding for health, medical health care, but also mental health care. 16 veterans commit suicide every day, and that just is deplorable. We need to be able to give them better sources of mental health care. We need to promote what programs are available so they know what they can access. And then another point of data around 23, there are so many homeless veterans at any point in time. There's a program called Veterans Community Project that was started in Kansas City. And what it does is it builds teeny homes and enables the veterans to move into them with their pets and gives them things like household items, brand new, so it gets them back on their feet. And that program, there's one down in Wichita, there's one in Kansas City, and I know that Jason Kander is working to promote this nationwide. But that program has an 85% success rate of veterans graduating from that and moving into permanent housing. Those types of programs need to be expanded, and we need to take care of our veterans.
Well, first of all, our veterans keep their promises to this country, and Washington really needs to keep its promise to them. The cuts we've seen are obviously unacceptable. When a person, any person, whoever they are, is willing to risk their life for this country, the least we can do is make sure they get the health care, the housing support, and the benefits that they were promised. We are the United States of America. We take care of our veterans. That means we fully fund and rebuild the VA so veterans can actually get appointments when they need them. I agree with Cindy. We've got to expand mental health services. I can't tell you how many veterans I've spoken to. This environment that we're in right now has made their mental health worse. They've got to get the help they need, and we've got to give it to them. And we've got to tackle the epidemic of veteran suicide with the seriousness that it deserves. That means making the transition home easier. We need job training, we need education benefits, and we need support for veteran-owned small businesses. Supporting our veterans is not a partisan issue. It's a moral obligation.
So the question was about DOGE, and DOGE seems to be the Department of Gutting Everything while not doing anything that it told the American people that it was going to do. So again, this is more lies and false choices, okay? We know that as government is gutted, that gutting affects not only our veterans who have served and fought and died for this country are overrepresented because of their ethos of service in government jobs. So what does cutting government jobs do? It harms our veterans. We know that women who were told, go get education, enter the workforce, realize that the private sector is not equitable. Government jobs for women are overrepresented. For communities of color are overrepresented in government jobs. So the reality is that it's not about saving money. It's about attacking our veterans. It's about attacking women. It's about attacking communities of color. And we just need to own that. Right? And so we talk about having a funding problem. The government wants to tell us, again, false choices, we have a funding problem. DOGE was not about cutting spending. the president's administration and our opponent, who's not checking them, are adding $1 trillion a quarter to the deficit, okay? Our young people are gonna be saddled with that debt, right? We have money for wars, but not money to take care of veterans. We have money for wars, but not money to fund education. We have money for wars, but we can't lift up our farmers who feed everybody and our young people. It is ridiculous, the false choices that we are forced into. But I want to remind us that everyone is hurting in this economy. So let's not make it about this group or that group. Every single group in this room is feeling the pain of these poor leaders. And that, my friends, is why we are going to replace Roger Marshall and a lot of other folks up and down this ticket in November.
It's really important to note that what we have on Senator Roger Marshall. He's a member of the Senate DOJ committee, which was organized before Donald Trump even entered the White House again. So he is directly responsible for these cuts. We've cut 300,000 jobs, civil service jobs, and move those roles from civil servants who are accountable to us to the private sector that we can't put our thumb on. And the VA alone has cut 80,000 jobs. Our veterans need services, but we're waging new wars. We're taking on forever wars without even considering the true cost of these wars. Money, lives, mental health, physical health. And now we've got boots on the ground in Ecuador. It's not just drones fighting these wars for us. These are real people. I support the policies and the policy priorities of Vote Vets, including strengthening diplomacy first, ending forever wars, providing economic opportunities for our veterans, including civil service, and fighting against efforts to underfund or privatize veterans' health care.
Okay, looks like we have enough time for an extra question here. We're going to talk about rural Kansans, and rural Kansans often feel left behind by Washington. How are you going to connect with voters in our rural areas here in the state of Kansas? And we'll go with that. Eric Murray, actually, on the end.
Perfect. The kid from Wyandotte County loves, and I mean this, literally loves traveling this state and talking to people. So if you can tell, I love everyone, right? And I'm fortunate that Wyandotte County is one of the most diverse counties in the entire country, but we are economically segregated. And as I travel to every corner of this state, from Garden City to Oberlin to Parsons, I see a ton of folks in Southeast Kansas here in the room. I've really enjoyed meeting so many great people all over this great state of ours who are really feeling the pain of economic segregation. So I think first off, we have to understand that the pain that we feel in urban communities is also being felt in rural communities. And that ability to connect in the shared challenges that our communities face, and people know and see that I care, I think is how we connect. So I surprised the Wyandotte County Democrats, my own county, at our breakfast last week, 2 weeks ago, because I talked about farmer suicides, right? And the reality is that as a kid from an underinvested community, where our kids my kids want to go live in other places because they're told that our way of life, that our community, that our economy isn't good enough. And to see this government tear down through tariffs and through poor policy and through bad trade deals, tear down our farmers, take their business away, but at the same time, we're not reinvesting in young people in every corner of the state, and so their kids don't want to live on that farm anymore. The sadness, the despair, and the depths of despair that we are seeing from farmers to veterans to, yes, teenagers, everyone is hurt in this economy. And I think understanding that shared struggle and understanding what it feels like to come from a left-behind community, but also to know that we can solve these problems and we can connect over solutions, I think is powerful. And so that's how I've been connecting with folks all over the state, and it's been very great. So I appreciate that, the ability to go first on that question.
Well, rural Kansans feel left behind by Washington because they have been left behind by Washington, like most of us. They've been left behind by the elites of the Epstein class, and quite frankly, in a lot of places, they've been left behind by our party. And the first thing we got to do is be honest about it. This question actually kind of sums up the problem. How are we going to appeal to rural Kansans like they're a whole different species? They're not Folks I know and I like. A lot of y'all. So I'm gonna appeal to them by treating them like people, by continuing to show up, to listen more than I talk, and just be honest about who I am and what I hope to achieve. We gotta talk with people, not at people. We need to know what their hopes and dreams and concerns and their ideas are. And then we need to go make those a reality. Let's make them a place at the table, not the subject of the study. Heck, let me come up to your table. But more importantly, how am I going to help them? And how am I going to do that? The same way I'm going to help us all. I'm going to get us on the path to universal health care by starting with Medicare for all kids. And we're going to save all of our healthcare systems. We're going to restructure regulations to favor local-owned and small businesses over these mega corporations. And we're going to break up the consolidated companies that have a stranglehold on our farm economies. Corporate favoring policies broke our small towns. Community favoring policies will save them.
So the first thing we need to do is try to reverse some of the impacts of the big abomination of a bill where they cut Medicaid, right? So cutting the Medicaid will cause rural hospitals to close. So what we need to do is look at some of the things that benefit the folks in rural communities and try to deliver against those. In talking to rural Kansans, when you go out and ask them what are their top three, obviously healthcare is usually number one for them, and it is number one across the state. To Ann's point, they're not different, they just have slightly different approaches to some things because of what resources they have access to. So we need to deliver for our rural neighbors and communities and make sure that they have hospital care, that they have access to education, that the farm bill gets pushed through so they have, their agricultural communities are supported, that the tariffs. Now tariffs can be a great economic tool, but not when you slap them on and off willy-nilly. That's not economics, that's market manipulation. And that's what the grifter in chief is doing right now. He's moving them on, moving them off, and then what happens is he tells his billionaire buddies to trade in front of it, or he trades himself in front of it. And that's just deplorable at best. But with respect to rural, you just keep going out, you be the senator that shows up, listens, and takes action to protect our rural communities. Thank you.
Heard a lot of talk about agriculture, heard a lot of talk about them. I'm the only candidate in this race who is a rural Kansan. Fifth generation Kansan, I grew up in Harvey County on a dairy farm that went under in the 1980s. We moved to town, which was a town of 1,000. And so for me, this race isn't about going out and visiting rural Kansas, this is about me and my own community. I've personally been on the board of a rural hospital that was already struggling even before the big beautiful bill cuts because Kansas doesn't have Medicaid expansion. And I know technically that's a state issue, but it becomes a huge federal issue. And honestly, I think I'm the candidate here that Roger Marshall can't look at and say, I'm not a real Kansan. We cannot count rural voters out. We talked about that with reproductive health care. But the other thing we need to keep in mind as Democrats, and just as politicians in general, leaders, is that addressing farm policy is part of the answer, but only 2% of the folks who live in rural America are engaged in production agriculture. That's why these other issues are so important to these communities, essential to their survival. And I've spent a lifetime and a career working in these communities and solving problems. It's not easy. If it was, it'd be done by now, but I've had a good start. Thanks.
So the way that you address rural Kansas is you show up. You show up. And now I want to tell you something though. They want to talk with me. And I'll tell you why. When I go to a dinner party, I say dinner party when I meet folks someplace, they ask me what I do and they're like, oh my God, thank you for your work. Do you know what they automatically assume my voting profile is? They're going to assume, because I'm law enforcement, that I'm Republican. And they'd be wrong. Because what I have been doing my entire career is standing up for those democratic values. I am them in their eyes, but I am you in front of them. And I am the translator. I'm the person that brings them across. Now, I gotta tell you, when I was starting to think about running, and this was only about a month ago, it was really the day of Alex Craig's execution, I didn't think the Dems would have me. I'm white, I'm cisgender, I'm male, I'm Christian, I'm pro-LEO, I'm pro-Second Amendment. I'm not passing any purity tests like Dave Cohen's talking about. But here's the thing, when we're talking to them, we're using different language, talking about the same things. We just need to translate it. Now, in an earlier presentation, Colin's right. Corporatization of farms is killing us, but so is the monopolization and consolidation of the input-output structure. When we have the AgriPro, Syngenta, Chinese corporation who has got a vertical marketing model, that's not good for Kansas farmers. And let's bring back USAID, because let's feed the world like we used to.
Thank you. All right, we have one final question, and then we will get to our closing statements here. And we kind of touched on this earlier, but I think this is important, and especially in our times right now. To each candidate, how will you bring people together in the state of Kansas? And then we'll start with, let's go ahead with Jason.
So how do you bring folks together? You go out and talk to them. You figure out what their interests are. Now, my job is I'm a professional questioner. I ask people questions for a living. And that's what we need more of, not talking to people. And the other thing you need to understand about my line of work is I'm not the expert. I become the master of facts and advocacy, but I listen to the experts. And the experts are our Kansas voters, our Kansas constituents, our Kansas communities that can tell us exactly what they need. And then take that and go to DC and advocate for them. Here's the thing, I got kids here in Kansas, young kids. I don't want to be spending my time in DC. I would much rather be back here coaching baseball like I do. That's what I want to do. And it's because we elect folks that don't have a tie here and they plan to move their families over there. That's not the hearts. The hearts are in Wichita, Kansas. And we plan to stay there. But you bring folks together by listening to them and giving them a voice. And if they trust you, they will follow you. And they trust me. They trust me because I've been showing what I'm about for 21 years. There's no moral ambiguity in Mr. Hart.
What I learned after talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of Kansans is we're all saying the same thing, we're just using different language. And sometimes the language gets in the way. I agree that it is very important to listen. It's important to listen with respect to everyone. It's important to listen to someone not as the other. It's really important to listen to what the issues are so that you can work together to solve problems together. And it's one of the things that we've really lost with social media and technology. We've lost community. I live in a town where if I've got an issue, I can go talk to someone in person. I don't carry an insurance card because I've got my insurance agent on speed dial. There's value in that. You build trust regardless of whether you agree on everything or not. We won't, as a campaign, have an opportunity. I won't have an opportunity to go speak to every person in Kansas, but through our team, we will. And with you all behind us and talking to your neighbors and listening without judgment and understanding that we're saying the same things with different language, that makes all the difference. It's going to take neighbors talking to neighbors to get it done.
Sorry, my voice went for a second.
What I would do is I would look at this like anything else. You want to look at the data, you want to determine what the strategic priorities are across Kansas, right? We've looked at data. We know it's healthcare, education, veterans, farmers, and the economy, right? Then what you need to do is get people involved. You create advisory boards across those topics. So as you lead in Washington, you're not representing an N of one, you're representing the whole state. So for instance, on agriculture, you get some larger farmers, smaller farmers, you get people that are in out west, down south, across the state, so they can inform policy. Then it's really truly representative of the actual state and not just one person like Roger Marshall going to DC and voting his conscience, which has nothing to do with what Kansas wants him to do. And you have a better decisioning process when you go down that path as well, because you are able to have more inputs and look at different perspectives as you bring people together. People tend to believe the things that they themselves create. And I just am a firm believer in that you can really pull people in across those priorities and get expertise, what we would call subject matter experts, around those topics to really inform policy and inform how I would represent truly one Kansas. Thank you.
I'm not going to tell you how I will do it. I'm going to tell you how I've been doing it. When I went to a salon and protest, these young children, they must have been around 18 years old, came up in their truck with their pro-2A, pro-Trump, pro-God on their truck. I'm not anything, I'm pro-people. They came up to me and said, "Are you a feminist?" Well, I said, "Well, what's a feminist?" And we had a conversation, me and those young kids. And I told them, you know what? I stayed home with my 2 kids for a while, and I think if you want to do that, you got to be able to do it. But I sure know this, you ain't going to make me do it. So I don't know what a feminist is. I'm a person. Same as when I was at the Moxie Community Pub, there's some Trump supporters got up to heckle me a little bit. And my campaign team put bets on how long it would take me to go talk to a manager. And I sure did. I sat there for 30 minutes. I didn't talk about politics. I didn't talk about anything. You know what I talked about? I talked about how these elite jokers in Washington are tearing us apart, lying to us to keep their power, to take from us. And we all agree. We want to hold them accountable. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight to hold our government accountable. I want to see consequences where consequences are due. I want to see public servants back in our offices. And I will fight for each and every Kansas because I am a Kansan. I am one of y'all. We are in it together. And that's it. Full stop.
So on the question of how do you bring people together in Kansas, I think it's simple. You bring people together in Kansas, okay? You show up. We're all running against somebody who doesn't even show up. I met a small business owner in Parsons who said, "I don't generally get into politics. If I did, I'd lean Republican, but I like you because you showed up in service, and you offered solutions." So you show up in service with solutions, and you're gonna bring Kansans together. We've talked a lot about the division and the distraction. Oftentimes as Democrats, we get painted into identity politics, right? You're not gonna see me go run an identity politics campaign. Here's why. You've heard candidates on this stage say, "Well, I look like them, so I can join them and they'll accept me." Okay. You've heard candidates say, "Well, I'm this or I'm that." Great. Guess what I am? I'm all of us. I'm a Kansan. As a kid who grew up in Wyandotte County, I went to Catholic grade school, so I understand that. I went to public high school. I'm sure I was not blessed with great athletic ability. I had to work my butt off with my public education. I like rap music and I like country music. I hunt. I own guns, believe it or not. Don't throw me out of this room because of it. I connect with people because I am one of us. And I think as Kansans, that is our strength. Our strength is that we are the heart of America. Let's connect with Kansans by being the heart of America. So I am represented in all of you, and I'm going to leave you with one thing. People say, "Oh, Eric, you talk that rural thing. You talk about how much you love country music. Let me prove it." This is what Kansans love. There's a song called Buy Dirt. It says, buy dirt. Find the one you can't live without. Get a ring, let your knee hit the ground. Do what you love, but call it work. And put a little money in the plate at church. If anybody knows that song, I know that song, and we can all sing it together. That's how we're going to bring Kansans together.
Thank you. Okay, closing statements, folks. You guys have done a fantastic job. Thank you for your patience out in the audience. We really appreciate it. And we'll go ahead down the line and do our closing statements. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. So one of the things that struck me about this administration that we're up against is it is really about distraction from the Epstein files. And I hate to say it, but we kind of have MAGA to be thankful for because they really pulled on that string. And what you see is every time something comes out, there's chaos and confusion and cover-ups. Every time it comes out, Trump hits the panic button and does something stupid, all right? Whether it's threats to invade Greenland, sending in the National Guard to U.S. cities, the Venezuelan boat strikes, sending CBP into Minneapolis, snatching Maduro, starting a war with Iran, it's always something dumb. And it alienates a whole body of Republicans. It has fractured and divided their party. It is the wedge. All right? Republicans knew this back in the day, and they used a wedge against us. They used a wedge to fracture Kansas and get us talking about abortion, even though it wasn't really a thing. Well, this is now the wedge, is child sexual exploitation, and as somebody said, the Epstein class. And that's a real and true thing. And that fracture grows worse and worse with more pressure, more revelations, and more bungled attempts to placate and distract. And here's the important part. Roger Marshall keeps siding with the Epstein class. Roger Marshall can't come at me and say, well, I'm more anti-child pornographer than you. I'm like, where have you been, Roger? I've been in court doing this for 21 years. Where have you been? Oh, we know. Florida.
The most important thing about this race is winning. And we all know there are key counties in Kansas, but this is a statewide race. And we need a candidate who can win in every county. My advantage in that is I've already worked in every county. I'm not there for a photo op. I've helped them with their hospital. I've helped them with their childcare. I've helped them with their water and sewer and all kinds of things that aren't very sexy either. I'm the only candidate who lives in rural Kansas. I think it's important to note that I've also worked in urban, suburban, and rural Kansas communities on community development. Talking to some folks in Wyandotte County, I know their neighborhood well. You might have been surprised to hear that. It's important to Kansans to have someone with a track record who shows them that they've done the work. I'm not a union member now, but I've been a union member. I love working people. I am a working person. Half of my husband's salary right now is going to pay for our insurance premium. I'm not a veteran, but I've worked to provide veterans health care and also housing for homeless vets. Data isn't everything. Kansans appreciate heart. And Kansans respect experience and a track record. I look forward to representing all of you in the U.S. Senate.
We all know that democracy is not a spectator sport. We are truly in this together. I know I can be out front and really relentlessly focus on our strategic priorities of healthcare, education, veterans, agriculture, and the economy, and then above all else, end the growth that's going on right now. We need to look at and make sure that people have access to quality and affordable healthcare and education. We have to keep our promises to our veterans. We need to look at agriculture from a perspective of passing the new farm bill, expanding broadband in rural areas, lowering the cost of farm inputs, and reopening markets via USAID. And of course, we need Congress to hold the executive accountable and stop the chaotic tariffs that are causing harm. We need to lower costs, of course, across the board. One of the ways to do that is to end the war in Iran. It's $1 billion a day right now for an issue that we shouldn't be in. That would also stabilize our oil prices. What we need to do for the Senate, we need someone to step up and do their damn job. We need to deliver results, not inverted food pyramids. And we definitely don't need a rubber stamp standing behind the president nodding like Bob Raj does. We need to stop electing people who know how to campaign, and we need to elect those that know how to govern with integrity and respect. We know how to win all of Kansas, not just for themselves and their billionaire buddies. We need to fight for our farmers, fight for our veterans, fight for our seniors, for our educators, for our students, for our unions. Someone who fights for all Kansans. I am that someone. I'm for the red and the blue, but most of all, I'm for Kansas. Join me at sandyforkansas.com.
Thank you.
Listen, loved ones, we've talked about a lot of things today. We've talked about how much we care, and I think as Democrats, we've got to lead with that care. We've talked about the challenges that we face. But as we look to win in November, we have got to talk about solutions. So let me go right through the solutions. All Kansans, like all Americans, are fed up with our rigged economy. We've got to bring Kansas values to Washington. Democracy, freedom, economic opportunity, right? These are our heartland, heart of America values. We know that there is no romance without finance. So if we love education, we've got to fully fund public education. That is the backbone of economic opportunity. We've got to fully fund healthcare. We've got to make sure that in the greatest country in the world, every American has access to healthcare. That seniors are not cutting pills in half or skipping prescriptions. That we can do this. We've got to uplift our communities through economic development, something I've done my whole career. Build more housing, invest in infrastructure, support our farmers and small business owners, invest in our veterans, invest in workers. We're the heart of agriculture, aviation, automotive, healthcare. Let's invest in these things. We most of all need a government for the people, not for profit, not for special interests. We've got to get money out of politics. That's why our campaign is only taking donations from individuals. We're not taking corporate PAC. We're not taking special interest money. And we were the #1 fundraiser on that, thanks to all of you in this room. So we are going to continue to lead with that. Last but not least, this is not just about me and beating Roger Marshall. We've got to think bigger, loved ones. In order to win, we've got to win up and down the ticket. You heard in this room, we're going to beat Ron Estes. We're going to beat Derek Schmidt. We're going to beat Chris Kovacs. We're going to beat Ty Masterson. So think bigger. Our campaign will engage every Kansan with that infrastructure so that we all win. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a written statement, but I'm not gonna. January 20th last year, I started calling my senators. They didn't answer. March 1st, I got up and left my house in Miss Christie at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to Oakley because my senator wouldn't listen to me. I told him that day I was gonna take his job. I was trolling him, but now I'm gonna. I went home and I said, I'm gonna recall this a-hole for the kids. But I found out we can't do it. So I said, what am I gonna do now? I call my family, I call my friends, what are we gonna do? Oh, so I can't hear, so I can't tell I'm yelling. I'm sorry. I'll show you my plans. They've been out on our table. If you want a copy, I'll give it to you. I've been in this with each and every one of you. I've been to the protests. I've been spinning my wheels trying to figure out what are we gonna do to take our country back. Because I am pissed. And I don't know why all those people in DC aren't pissed. Either they've been lying to us to get us this upset, and they know we're upset for no reason, or know we're upset for good reason and they're not. And why the hell aren't they? I'm here for my kids. I don't get up for much. I get up for kids, or when my mom gets, and I get up for my people. And now all of y'all are my people. From Mr. Allen and Pratt and Cunningham went first, to Fort Scott, Miss Jennifer, to Miss Patty, who's on the other side, who texted her misinformation so that I can show her mine, so that we can compare notes and figure out what the hell is really going on. I'll tell you the truth. I'll fight for you because I am one of you. And I will do everything I can to not let you down, Kansas. But do this, when you choose me or anybody else, you hold their feet to the fire. You don't let up. I don't care if you agree with every single thing I say. If I go to Washington for you, I want to hear from you again. You don't stop until they are doing something for us. Join us, andforkansas.com. It's and with an E. We are up by and for the people. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, panelists, for all of your time today. Thank you for everyone joining us. And we'll take a quick picture so we can get together here real quickly, and then we will transition to our next forum.
We're going to hear from one of our Secretary of State candidates, and I'd like you all to be seated for that. A couple of reminders: stay out of the center aisle as we go wide, because then people will see your beautiful face bigger and bigger and bigger as you're crossing the center aisle. Please take your seats. I'm going to give you about a 20-second countdown, and then we're going to hear from our second Secretary of State candidate. And then we will introduce our moderator and our candidates. Thank you all so much.
Hello, everybody. Hi, friends. My name is Jennifer Day, and I'm running for Secretary of State. This is an important role in the executive level in our state government, and it's been an often overlooked and somewhat mysterious position to some, I think, when it comes to it. But then a certain someone at the federal level lost their 2020 election and started to bring secretaries of state and election officials across the country into the spotlight. So, as you're all probably aware, a main responsibility of the Secretary of State office is administering elections in our state and managing the voter rolls, appointing election commissioners in our 4 most populous counties, and aiding in the training of our county clerks across the state. And that's where my experience and understanding of our elections process comes into play. Not only have I been knocking doors for campaigns and the Democratic Party since 2018, but I've been volunteering to work elections since 2018. I ran for Kansas House of Representatives in 2020 in my South Overland Park district and won by just 62 votes, which really helped me prove that every vote counts. I've seen a coin flip to decide a race in South Johnson County before, because that's what it comes down to sometimes. If 2 more people had shown up to vote, we would have had to flip that coin, but it really does matter that we get people out to vote. And that's why we need to work on focusing more on promoting civic engagement among Kansans of all ages. And we need to promote education on our election processes and procedures so we can help voters feel more comfortable when they go in to vote year after year. I'm passionate about election security and efficiency. Our current laws ensure that security and don't need adjusting in spite of what some of the legislature may believe. And as a former legislator, a small business owner, and a volunteer for Johnson County elections for 15 elections over the last 8 years, I have the experience and knowledge this office requires. I've seen in person lots of various scenarios that voters experience when they come in to vote. I've seen voters standing in a machine for 20, 25 minutes as they consider their options, and it just breaks my heart when I see that happening. I want people to come in prepared and feeling comfortable with their choices that they're making when they're coming in to vote. So how can a Democrat win this statewide race, right? Like we saw with abortion access in 2022, Kansas swings blue when we are able to spread our message and meet voters where they're at. Kansans often agree with my message, so I'm getting out across the state to hear from voters and talking to county election clerks directly, and to share my plans for this office and to hear what it is that their needs are to be met, right? My website is electjenday.com. Please follow my social media donate if you can, and let's get a Democrat, like Laura Kelly mentioned last night, let's get me elected to the Secretary of State's office here in November. I sure appreciate all your attention. Let's have a great forum here with the governor, and thank you so much, Gina, for everything you've done this weekend. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Are you guys ready to hear from your gubernatorial candidates? Oh, I'm tired too, but are you ready to hear from your gubernatorial candidate? I'm the one on that phone. Okay, I'm going to introduce, before I do that, something super special. Is Ethel Edwards in the room? Somebody told me she was close. Oh, there! Ethel, can you come down here real quick? We were good on time, so, and this is our final forum, so we got nothing but time. Come on up, Miss. So we are a party of volunteers, and we gave away our Volunteer of the Year award yesterday, our luncheon, but there's a person that you guys need to know and meet. She has been the backbone of this party for years and years and years, and today happens to be her birthday. It's also National Women's Month, so I'm not gonna make you sing, but happy birthday, Ethel. We have a gift for you for everything that you've done. This is what democracy looks like. Thank you, and happy birthday. Apparently, the chair of Johnson County, Deanne Mitchell, and our DNC National Committee woman, it's also her. Deanne, are you still here? She's running around. All right. Thank you. I appreciate the singing. All right. Without further ado, you guys have heard me. You can hear my voice is going, and there's people you need to hear from. So I'm going to bring up our moderator for our gubernatorial, Adam Corduna.
Thank you, Chair, and we will go ahead and bring up our candidates that will come and join me on the stage. We will have our candidates. And then we will also ask if we have any veterans or anyone that has served in the military to please stand. Anyone that has served, and then we will recognize them. Thank you. And then we will also do the pledge of allegiance to get things started. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so let's have a good closing here to our Washington Days Forum. We've done a great job, folks. Thank you for your patience and allowing the candidates to talk and explain themselves and give you an opportunity to hear from them personally. So we will introduce our candidates. They will have 2 minutes to intro themselves and to give you guys an insight to who they are, and then we will go straight into the questions from there. And then, so for the rules, so that everyone's clear, each candidate gets 90 seconds. Keep the applause to a minimum. We understand that there's supporters in the crowd, and that's okay. We all are here for that, but let's try to keep the noise to a minimum as they give their answers. And so that will be 90 seconds, and then we will give them 2 minutes to close as well for their final statements. But keep the applause to a minimum if we can, so that way we can get through this fairly quickly, and so that we can all hear your answers. So we will start with Ethan Corson to give us our intro.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Corson. I'm a husband, a dad, a lifelong Kansan, and I'm running to be the next governor of this great state. If you would ask 18-year-old me what I would be doing, governor would not be on the list. Back then, I was obsessed with one thing: baseball. And after high school, that took me to Garden City Community College. And that experience changed my life. I had teachers who pushed me, coaches who demanded more of me, and teammates from all across the state who showed me how beautiful, big, and diverse our state truly is. That's what opportunity looks like, and that's what Kansas gave me. My path eventually took me to Washington University in St. Louis, and then to Washington, D.C., where I was the chief of staff in the Department of Commerce, and I helped open markets for American producers around the world. including for Kansas farmers. But my wife Jenna and I, we made a choice that not many people make today. We decided to come home to raise our family. And I got to work helping to rebuild the Kansas Democratic Party, serving as executive director during this cycle when we sent Sharice Davids to Congress and Laura Kelly to the governor's office. And those wins showed something. They showed that Kansas voters will elect moderate leaders who are focused on getting results and working across the aisle. That's why I'm proud to have the endorsements of Governor Laura Kelly, Governor Kathleen Sebelius, and organized labor, because they know I'm the only candidate who can win in November and deliver results. I'm running for governor because Kansas should be a place where the next generation can build a future, where strong schools and economic opportunity exists in every part of our state, and where families can afford to stay here and raise their kids here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Senator Cindy Holscher, candidate for governor. I am so excited to be here with you today, and happy International Women's Day. Affordability, it is something I've been hearing about for several months as I've gone across the state. And I have to tell you, making ends meet has just been a fixture of my life since the very beginning. I come from a union family. I'm a union member myself. Additionally, my father is a veteran, a Marine, as well as my brother who is an Army veteran. I have very humble beginnings. I'm the granddaughter of tenant farmers, and very proudly say to you that I'm a first-generation college graduate. And because of that, because of public education, a strong union job, that is what enabled my family to rise up out of poverty. And it's probably why I work so hard for working families and for education. In 2016, Governor Brownback's disastrous experiment was destroying our state. I saw a problem that needed to be fixed. So I stepped forward and decided to run for office, even though naysayers within the party told me I shouldn't do it and that I should stay put. But I came forward, I ran, and I won, winning every single precinct, defeating a 3-term incumbent in a very red district. Oh, you can go ahead and clap this. In my time, I've taken out 2 Republican incumbents, winning elections in red districts 4 times, something no one else in this race has done. I have been winning the tough bills and delivering results. With over 150 endorsements from leaders across the state, I've done over 60 town halls and focused on what matters to the people, making life more affordable. And as governor, I will work to do just that. And because I've been able to deliver results, that's probably why I have a 20-point lead over my nearest opponent in the primary. We are ready to win. I know this is going to be a tough election, and that's why I stepped forward. To win in November, I'm going to bring all of you with me, and that's why I am running to be your governor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, thank you. I appreciate being here very much, and I appreciate the invite. I'm the third wheel in this group, so to speak. I'm a different kind of Democrat, got a very different kind of background than most traditional politicians. It's probably my best attribute. I was born in Hays, Kansas. I was raised in North Hays, about 3 hours, small farm town out on the Nebraska border, about 2,000 people. My parents were public school teachers. My grandparents were farmers. I'm 4th generation Kansan. I was raised and lived in rural America. I wouldn't change the way I was raised and brought up in Kansas for anything. I love growing up in a small town. Went to a junior college in Kansas and finished my degrees at the University of Kansas in Kansas. Loved my experience in Lawrence, and we live there now. My wife and I have 2 kids from Lawrence, and we love Lawrence and love the experience there. I graduated college and went straight into self-employment. I signed my first SBA loan when I was 23 years old. I signed my first lease when I was 23 years old. I've been signing commercial leases, loans, payrolls for the last 35 years, sweating many of them at night, midnight, with anybody here self-employed that can understand that. It is not an easy task to be self-employed and small businessman. There comes with a lot of problems and good stuff too. I have been thinking about this for a while, about 10 years. And so when I got to the point when this had happened about 5 years ago, we formed a committee. We've been working on it ever since, much like, I still listen. So when we got the race, we've had a great time doing it, we've had a great experience, and I've enjoyed being out and about. I think it's my experience as a small businessman and being from rural Kansas that really separates me from the other two candidates in the governor's race. That's the big difference. But I look forward to your questions, I look forward to talking to you afterwards, and I look forward to meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get started right now with our first question. We'll start with Senator Corson. Okay, across the state, Kansans are feeling the effects of rising costs. As governor, what will you do to address the issue of affordability?
You know, this issue is personal to me. One of the reasons I'm running for governor is we need a candidate who understands the modern challenges that families today are going through. You know, like so many families in Kansas, my wife and I both work full-time. Every single month, we make 2 car payments, 2 student loan payments, and for the last 6 years, we made a child care payment, all while trying to pay our mortgage and put aside a little for our kids' college fund. So that is actually why I first ran for the Kansas Senate, because I was watching what was going on in Topeka, and there were so many folks focused on these culture war issues and not focused on how to help working families. This legislative session, I introduced my Working Families Agenda, which will keep more money in the pockets of working families. This is going to be tax cuts for working families, not the 1%, for renters, for homeowners, for young couples trying to start off, for every single person who owns a vehicle in Kansas. It is possible to make government more affordable, and that should be the #1 priority of Kansas government, and as your governor, that will be my priority.
We'll go to Julie. Same question.
Yeah, so affordability is obviously something that we all feel at some level, and certainly is something that we have to address as a state and as people. For me, to address affordability, I would go about it a couple different ways. I think number one, we need to have school lunches paid for by the state. I think that aspect alone would take some money from people that are giving to the schools and put it back in their own budgets. I think we need to pay school teachers more. I think we need to pay school teachers a lot more. My mother is in year 57 teaching school in this state. And I'm very proud of that, and she's had a great deal of influence with me, on me regarding the public school issue. But we need to pay our teachers more. I'll give more details of that later. And we also have to focus on small business. Affordability and small business go hand in hand. This state is 99% small business. 60% of the state is 5 employees or less. 100% are 50 employees or less. This is a small business state. And small businesses is how we rebuild rural Kansas. It's how we build the economics of Kansas. It's with small business, not big business. Thank you.
You know, too many Kansans are struggling, just flat out. And it just feels like the whole system's been rigged against us, and I feel it too. And as governor, here's what I'll do to work to lower costs and make lives more affordable. We got to lower housing costs. We have an affordability crisis when it comes to housing. And I'll tell you, there are nuances to it. In particular, in Wichita, we have a landlord that owns a third of the property there. And there are no caps on that fees when someone's late on their rent. That hurts our people. We have to address that. Additionally, we have other situations. While redlining is no longer supposed to be a thing, we have reverse redlining, where there's predatory mortgage pricing or mortgage practices and other pricing strategies that are in effect that hurt people of color. Those issues have to be addressed, and I will work with the legislature to do so. But there's other topics too. We have to reduce healthcare costs. How about we finally get Medicaid expansion across the finish line? We have to make child care more affordable and accessible. And medicinal cannabis is part of another way to make healthcare more affordable and accessible. And I have brought forward other bills to make life better for Kansans. Free school lunch for our children, as well as raising the minimum wage to $16 an hour. We are so behind on that. I will keep fighting for those things that help working families day in and day out. And I will tell you this, I will prioritize tax relief for seniors, veterans, and working families, not giveaways for billionaires.
Thank you. Senator Corson, we will address this question to you. Childcare is getting too expensive for families. How can we as a state make it more accessible for our families?
Yeah. You don't have to tell me about the cost of childcare because every month for the last 6 years, Jenna and I have written a check for childcare for one, or sometimes when both our boys were in childcare, 2 kids. Think about this right now. 1 year of childcare in Kansas costs more than 1 year of in-state tuition at one of our public universities. Think about the challenges that is facing, that is putting on families all across our state. You know, I was really proud to support Governor Kelly's effort to establish the Office of Early Childhood. This is a really important first step in consolidating all of our early childhood services under one cabinet level agency. This will be better for providers, better for parents. We also have to look at innovative solutions. When I toured Manhattan Technical College, they actually have part of the college is an incubator where folks who want to start a daycare can actually use the space in Manhattan Technical College for a year before they go out into the community. We need to think about if we can expand creative solutions like that. And in the Senate, I've supported policies that would encourage more businesses to have on-site childcare, because this would be great for working families. When we talk to businesses all across the state, what they will tell us is we need more workers. And right now we have too many Kansans who want to work, they want to be part of our workforce, and they're not able to because they're not able to find safe, reliable childcare. I will continue to build on the progress we made under Governor Kelly.
Well, I have lived expensive childcare with 3 children, undoubtedly. I know absolutely what that's like. And I will tell you, affordable childcare, when that's available, that's an indication of thriving Kansas and a thriving state. And when families can't access it, that hurts all of us, and that hurts our workforce. I've stood up to protect childcare tax credits. It was a position I held and held out for when working to end the ground rat experiment, when I was a co-founder of the Women's Bipartisan Caucus, and we put together that plan to end the horrible experiment and get Kansas back on track. I have fought for single moms against legislation that would have made it harder for them to get child care payments. That was especially important. I'll continue that fight as governor. And as governor, I will work to make child care more available, more affordable by investing in child care providers, which is especially needed. And I will tell you, and something very much related, in order to get more representation of younger people into office, I helped change the rules in terms of how campaign funds to be used to allow families, parents, to use campaign funds for childcare, so we can get younger people elected and have better perspective in office. There's models out there that exist right here in Kansas of what can be done to help this childcare issue right in Humboldt, Kansas. There's a great model there of what they're doing with on-site childcare. And I'll tell you this, I will work across the aisle continually to solve this issue and have been for years, and we've been making progress. I also make this pledge to you. In seeking solutions, I will never support plans that put children and their health and safety at risk. Thank you.
Well, just as like Ethan and Cindy, I've also done child care with 2 children, so we all know that. We all know that bill very well. Pre-K, we need a pre-K program in the state of Kansas. Our southern neighbor, Oklahoma, has a pre-K program that uses since 1978. They have about a 75% enrollment rate. They know from the research now and the studies that kids who go through a pre-K program do better in school, both in elementary school and all the way through. And if we're serious about developing our public school system, this is another component of becoming a really good public school system that we need to include. It would cost money, that's everything does, but we all understand that if we're not going to invest, especially in our public schools and our kids, we're really not investing in anything. And we cannot continue to just wither on the vine as a state or a public school system. It has to be something we continually invest in at all levels, and pre-K would be an excellent way to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Tooley will stay with you when it comes to healthcare for our next question. What are the most pressing issues for Kansans, and how would you address them as governor?
So the obvious one is Medicaid expansion. And Cindy's already brought that up maybe as well, but Medicaid expansion needs to happen in our state. There's no doubt about it. We're one of 10 states left that have still not done Medicaid expansion, so it is something that we desperately need to do. We need to do it for a lot of reasons, helping taking care of our citizens, one, but also taking care of our small towns and rural Kansas. For the hospitals, as we all know, are one of the largest employers of any county out there. And cities, small towns, and counties depend on those hospitals and those businesses to make their rural systems work. We need hospitals, and they tie right in with the public school system as well. We need the public school system to go with that as well. We have to have the two biggest employers in rural counties be successful: public school systems and hospitals. And in order to make sure that, Medicaid expansion is something that would have to happen. Now, the numbers often go anywhere from $8 to $200 million a year in cost to Kansans for the Medicaid system, but it's money well spent, because we also know that healthier people who have healthcare access, do better. They're more productive. So that is important, if not the most important aspect of really what we're doing is healthcare. Thank you.
As a parent to a child with a chronic condition, I know what it's like to have healthcare insurance, but to actually feel like, well, it feels like you don't have insurance at times, honestly. So, I mean, we've gone through those struggles. I know what that's like. And I can tell you, no parent should have to choose between making choices on buying groceries or getting your child's medicine. And that's what we see a lot of people facing. Politicians are making dangerous cuts to our programs, Medicaid and Social Security. That's hurting us. And with the expiration of ACA tax credits, that's a huge threat. And I will tell you this, as governor, I will push back and pull every lever out there to protect our people and to bring health care and what we need across the state. Additionally, we have to address some other issues. Maternal mortality, infant mortality, we lag behind other states, and we have disparities in terms of what we're seeing in care. Black women in Kansas experience a higher rate of maternal morbidity compared to white women. We have to address that gap. We also have to address the gap between infant mortality rates. With me as governor, I will establish a task force, I will establish a team to close that gap and address those other issues, including mental health and lack of support for our women who are bearing children. For years in the legislature, I have fought for Medicaid expansion as well as medicinal cannabis, getting both of those passed only to have leadership stall it and stop it. I will be relentless in getting this done and reactivating our advocates out there and helping us get those things brought forward. And you will see me doing everything I can to get more Democratic House members elected and Senate members so that we can get balance and bring forth policies that we need and deserve.
Thank you. Kansans should be able to get the care that they need without going broke and without driving for hours to see a doctor. Right now, we have major challenges in our healthcare system. Because of the failures in Washington, we have thousands of Kansans who are losing their health insurance. And this comes at a time when Kansas already has the largest number of hospitals that are at a high risk of closure. So that's why healthcare is a top issue for my campaign. Think about this. Don't take out your phone now, but look later. Right now in Kansas, there is not an OB or a GI between Pratt and Denver. Just take out your phone later and look at how big a geographic area that is when we have these islands without folks who are able to get the care that they need. So I've been touring the state. I've been meeting with nurses, with doctors, with hospital administrators. I met with a hospital in Southwest Kansas. They told me they have not been profitable since 2017, in almost a decade. So here are 4 things that I'm going to do to help improve healthcare access in Kansas. Number 1, we need to expand Medicaid. This is a moral and an economic imperative for our state.
Number two, I will make sure as governor that every single penny of the Rural Healthcare Transformation Program is used to improve access to care in rural areas and to keep our rural hospitals open. Number three, we need more providers in rural areas in Kansas. What I'll do as governor is I will increase the availability and accessibility of our student loan repayment programs so we get more docs in those rural areas. And long term, we need to encourage more rural students to go to medical school.
Thank you. We will continue with our healthcare theme here for these questions, and we'll start with Senator Holster. What is your position on women's reproductive health care, and what, if any, will you do to ensure that abortion and contraception remain safe and legal in Kansas?
Thank you for the question. I will tell you, in August 2022, of course, I was very active in terms of ensuring that that amendment, the value of both amendment, was voted down, because we all know that that was an attack on reproductive health care. So, like every election cycle, and that cycle in particular, I was out there, boots on the ground, knocking doors, talking to voters, letting them know about that amendment, and making sure we mobilized people and got them out to vote. And what did we see? We saw historic numbers posted in August of 2022 as we defeated that amendment. And that work continues. Every session, we see more and more bills that are introduced by extremists to try to chip away at reproductive health care. I continue to push back and fight back against those. And that fight continues right now because we have a ballot initiative coming up in August. I've done over 60 town halls across the state this summer. As part of those town halls, every stop I make, every conversation I have, I am talking about that amendment, reminding people that if they came out in August of 2022 to vote no, they got to come back out to do it again, because that's absolutely what is at stake, but people don't know it in terms of what this amendment is actually about. So I am there every step of the way, every day, making sure that access remains out there for all of us. I have 2 daughters, of course. It's always on my mind in terms of making sure reproductive health care is there for them, but every single female out there. Thank you.
Well, defeating the amendment was ensured that our state's going to have, women in our state are going to have the right to choose, which is imperative and important, and so we've done that. But here's where the real battle's going to start now. If we don't elect a Democrat in the governor's big chair, that legislation is going to come under attack right from the get-go, and it's going to be vicious, and it's not going to stop. And the Republicans will try their damnedest to legislate it so much that it'll be impossible to get an abortion in this state again. They'll make it that hard, there's no doubt about it. It's one of the reasons why we have to win the big chair. There's going to be so many things change in this state if we get a Republican in the big chair that we're going to be set with, not be able to undo for decades, if not lifetimes. It's that important. This is the most important governor's race we've ever had for that reason and for several others. We're going to have things happening that are going to change our life a very long time. So we got to think long and hard about who we elect from the governor's position, from the Democrat position, because that person has got to be able to lead and be able to stop those things. Thank you.
Abortion care is legal in Kansas because of so many of you in this room. So I just want to say thank you so much for all the work you did in 2022 to make sure that we defeated that constitutional amendment that would have led to a ban on abortion. You know, Jen and I, like so many of you in 2022, we went out and we knocked on so many doors. We were actually at the Canvas kickoff for Kansans for Reproductive Freedom when we first launched our field operation. We went out and talked to our friends and our neighbors about the importance of that amendment. And my record has always been clear in the Kansas Senate. A woman's healthcare choices are hers and hers alone. I have the record to back that up. But look, we should all be clear-eyed. I know that the attacks on reproductive rights will continue, and I want to pledge to you that as your governor, I will be a brick wall against any attacks on a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions.
Thank you. We're going to transition into education. We're going to talk about public education and what you will do to protect public schools in Kansas. And we'll start with Marty Tooley.
All right, so this is really the big one, right? Because when we look at our state budget, I mean, this is really, when we boil Kansas down, this is what we do. We run public schools. I mean, it's 60% of our budget. It's what we do. It's how we maintain our state. It's the value that we put on our state and our people. So there are three things I think we do immediately. Number one, teachers have got to be paid more. Currently ranked 45th in the nation in average teacher pay, okay? Not nearly good enough. We can all agree on that. Got to get that better. That's got to be at least a 35, okay? So step one is get teacher pay, public school teacher pay to 35, okay? Step two, we're going to need to address the, we're going to need to make sure we address the food program and the food program we serve our kids. Nobody here wants to eat a school lunch, I promise you. We've all been there. They're not any good. They're not healthy. They're not good for us. They're not good for our kids. We have to address that. And we want that lunch program to be funded by the taxpayer, not the families. Okay? We can do that as well. Those two initiatives, those are the big ones in our public school. We've got to pay our school teachers what they're due, and we've got to take care of our school lunch program. Thank you.
As many of you likely know, I have been a warrior for public education from day one. In fact, prior to entering the legislature with the Brownback experiment devastating our schools, I joined with a group of advocates and literally walked from Shawnee to Topeka twice to advocate for funding for our schools. And while I'm pleased to say that we've been able to do a better job of funding general education, we're falling short on special education and have not reached those levels since 2011. That hurts all our students in all our schools. That has to change. With me as governor, that will change. We've lost a great number of teachers too over the years, partly because of the pandemic. And I'll tell you this, I couldn't stand to see my educator friends after that loss of teachers. I couldn't stand to see them covering 2 and 3 classrooms every day. So I went out and got my substitute license so I could help out in my community, in my schools on days when we're not in session. And I will just tell you this, if you decide to do it, stay away from 4th graders. But very importantly, we have to build our teacher pipeline. We can't continue the way we are after this loss of teachers, and we want our schools to be strong. I am committed to working with people across the aisle and to working with our subject matter experts across the state to rebuild that pipeline. And I'll ensure that we work to make our higher education institutions better funded, because we're hurting in that area too. And let me be very clear, I will continue to push back against every single voucher scheme that is brought forward, which is just a transfer of wealth. I'm happy to say, with my network of people across the state, we stopped every single one of those bills last year. I will work to make sure teachers are better paid and that every child out there, no matter their zip code, has access to a great school. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I'm the product of Kansas public schools. I went to a Kansas public school for my first day of pre-kindergarten until I graduated from Garden City Community College. And we now have a son in the same Kansas public school district that I graduated from. So this is personal to me. The first thing that I will do as governor is I will make sure that we implement a strong school funding formula that fully and adequately funds our schools all across the state, that fixes the crisis that we have in special education, and then make sure that our districts are getting the resources they need to raise teacher pay. As was mentioned, Kansas is in the bottom third in the country in terms of teacher pay. That is not only wrong, but that does not reflect our values as Kansans. And we have too many teachers leaving the profession. I was in Liberal, I was having lunch, and I was talking to our waitress, and she was a teacher who had recently left the teaching profession because she was not getting the mental health and the professional development that she needed to thrive in her career. And unfortunately, that story is not uncommon. Kansas right now has the second highest percentage of teachers leaving the profession every single year. So we need to pay them better, and we need to make sure that they have a secure retirement. That's why I'm proud to be the only person on this stage that sponsored Senate Bill 202 that would take every single teacher out of KPERS 3, our worst retirement program, and put every single teacher in Kansas into KPERS 2 where they have the security that they deserve. Thank you. So rural Kansans often feel left behind by Topeka, and they often decide statewide elections. How are you going to connect with voters in our rural areas here in Kansas? And we'll start with that.
So I was largely shaped into the person that I am today by rural Kansas. The first place that I lived, other than my parents' house, was a dorm room in Garden City, Kansas. And that's a perspective that I have never lost and that has continued to shape me to this day. We have spent more time in rural Kansas than any other campaign in either party. We've been sitting down talking with folks in rural Kansas, particularly in western Kansas, about what they need in their community. They talk to me about how we need to solve the water crisis. I have a plan to do that. They talk to me about the need to make sure that those schools in rural Kansas have the resources they need, because it's those schools and those small communities, those are the beating heart of those communities all across Kansas. They talk to me about the need for four-laning, putting shoulders on, putting passing lanes on, and putting better lights on more roads in western Kansas. And I will tell you, as somebody who has personally changed a tire at 11:30 at night between Dodge City and Garden City, they are absolutely right, and I will do that. And they, of course, talk to me about the impact of tariffs on farmers across the state. I have the trade experience in opening markets, and I have pledged to them that I will personally, as governor, lead as many trade missions as it takes to open up markets for our farmers so they can sell their product around the world. I think it comes down to listening, and I've been the one who's been doing that in all parts of Kansas.
Thank you. Senator Holter.
I think I'm probably the only one on the stage that actually grew up on a farm, so I appreciate the experiences that people may have had being close to a farm or other experiences. But I will tell you this, there's nothing that compares in terms of that lived experience. I'm familiar with what it means to get up at 5 a.m. and do chores before you go to school, and then come home after school and do more chores, and then do your homework, and then do your extracurriculars. And boy, does that make a difference when you're traveling the state and talking with people in rural areas, that you have that same experience, that you have that same point of connection, and that you understand those policies and the things that are hurting them. And that's what I bring to the table, that commonality. It also probably makes a difference, again, I'm from a family of veterans and a family of union workers. Again, a lot of points of commonality where we can come together and work out solutions. Again, FFA, 4-H, those are the things that are part of my experience that bring me here today, that help shape me into the person that I am, that made me a leader. And I bring all of that as we go forward. And I will tell you this, there's nobody who can bring the experience in terms of how to solve the water crisis, how to solve the tariff issues, and how to address all the issues facing our farmers. Nobody that can bring all that to the table like a farm girl, and that's what I'll bring.
Thank you.
Well, like Cindy, I did too grow up on a farm, and so I know the rural American life better than most politicians. And I think what gets lost, what I've heard over the years when I go home for the fair and meet with my high school buddies, there's been a disenfranchised feel with Western Kansas, Central Kansas, rural Kansas from this side of the state. And it's been real, and you can feel it when you go home. And so we have to absolutely, as Democrats, connect that bridge, because we all understand and know that when this election comes around, what's really going to come around to is independent voters and moderate Republicans. And who can go out there and bridge that gap with that group? That's the only way we win the big chair. If we don't bridge that gap, that won't happen. I'm a 12-year member of the 4-H. I have walked more hedgerows chasing pheasants and quail in my time at 10 degrees in January that I don't even tell you about. I have tiptoed hay in July when it's 105 degrees all day long. You look at Dictionary of Small Town Kansas Boy, you're going to see my picture boldly presented right there. I've done it all. And I wouldn't have changed a thing. Growing up in rural America is just fabulous. But thank you for your time.
All right. Continuing with some of our rural community topics here. In addition to making goods more costly, tariffs have made life harder for Kansas farmers and ranchers. What will you do to support them in the face of all these tariffs? And we'll start with Senator Bolsher.
Well, as we talked about, these tariffs are already stretching our farmers and ranchers thin. I mean, it's destroying their markets. And literally, we have farmers who, they want to grow food. They don't want to grow these products to have them rotting in the field. They want to feed Americans. They want to feed Kansans. So we have to get to work here and figure out how we're going to solve this problem and find them new markets. And there are things that we can pursue. I've mentioned medicinal cannabis. That's a new crop for us, a new avenue we can pursue. But what about this? How about this farm-to-table movement? So many of our schools across the state use packaged items for lunch. That's a new market for us. Farmers growing food for our schools. What better way to invest in our children and get healthy foods on their plates? And I will tell you, I will consistently work to develop forward-looking strategy. And while I grew up on a farm, keep in mind, as an adult professional, I worked for over a decade in product development and creating markets, implementing multi-million-dollar budgets and growth programs. I know how to create markets and I know how to generate revenue. And in part of this, I will tell you this, I want to make sure we bring farmers who are people of color to the table and not overlook their needs and the developments they've made. Our farmers and ranchers help this country. They help our state grow, and they deserve leadership that fights for them every single day. Thank you.
So as I've been campaigning, I've spoken with farmers in every single corner of the state. And what has happened is absolutely tragic. In 2025, we lost over 700 farms in Kansas. So I was in Salina recently and I was talking to a farmer, and she explained to me that, as farmers, you're used to dealing with things like drought. You're used to dealing with things like disease. You have good years and you have bad years. But what is so unfortunate about the current situation is that this year was actually a good year for most producers. If the federal administration had just done nothing, it would have been a good year for most farmers. And so this is a completely self-inflicted wound that the federal government has put on Kansas farmers and farmers around the country. I'm the only candidate in either party that really understands how we can open markets around the world for these producers. I was chief of staff of the International Trade Administration at the U.S. Department of Commerce. 2,200 employees in 78 different countries, 105 U.S. cities, over $500 million annual budget. And I woke up every single day thinking about how to help American producers, American farmers, including here in Kansas, access markets. This is a skill that maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, would not have been important for a governor to have. It is critically important that the next governor understand what market access looks like, understand what free trade looks like, and understands how to do it. And so I've been talking to all these farmers all across Kansas, and I have pledged to them that as governor, I will personally be the one who gets on the plane and leads trade missions, as many as it takes to open those markets.
Thank you. We're going to stay with our ag questions here. Particularly in Western Kansas, water is a growing concern. What is your plan to protect Kansas water resources for farms, cities, and for future generations? And we will start with Mark.
Well, obviously, water, particularly the aquifer in Western Kansas, is of great concern for Kansas and how we. If the aquifer were to go dry, the change in Kansas would be so pronounced. You almost can't think about it, right? Because our entire state depends on this, from Salina west, we depend on that aquifer for the water. 90% of all the water out of the aquifer goes to our irrigation, it goes to our farmers. 55,000 independent family farmers still in this state. 90% of our entire state is ag. It's either grazing or it's crops. So the aquifer, protecting the aquifer is absolutely paramount. And so we're going to put in place right now steps, processes by which we're going to start monitoring and making sure that the aquifer doesn't get depleted to the point where it affects the culture of Kansas and how we're in our lives and we're living out there, in particular the farmers. Thank you.
So water should not be a political issue. This should not be a Republican issue, it should not be a Democrat issue, it should not be a red issue, it should not be a blue issue. This is about protecting the future of our state, protecting the future of our farm and agriculture economy, and protecting our water supply for the next generation. So here's what I want to do. One of Governor Kelly's big accomplishments last year was we were able to put together a task force on water. So we've got the technical experts, the right folks around the table who are working to come up with the recommendations that we then need to implement to preserve the water supply for generations. Here's my role as governor. This is what you need to do. We need to secure a dedicated funding stream for our water program so it is not subject to the annual appropriation every year. Because what has happened is our water office has been unable to do any long-term planning. Because in years when the budget's good, they get more funding. In years when the budget's tight, that's one of the first things that gets taken away. So they can't make the kind of long-term plans that we need to do if we are ever serious about addressing this crisis. So think about the way that we fund our highway system. Think about the transportation program. That is a dedicated funding stream from sales tax, federal money, and the motor fuels tax that legislatures don't get to touch every year. I will do the same thing for water because that's how we can solve this crisis. Thank you.
This is a topic with which I am very well acquainted. The first speech I ever gave in high school for the FFA was about the Ogallala Aquifer and its impending depletion. And just a couple decades later, then once in the legislature, I was assigned to the Water Committee. And I will tell you, we put together a strong bipartisan plan to address the issue. We understand the problem, we know what to do, but I will tell you, we have just lacked the political will to fund it and get it done. And I will tell you, the issue I keep hearing over and over on the campaign trail across the state is that this is an issue, the water issue, that needs to be dealt with and dealt with now. Whether it's Western Kansas, Central Kansas, Eastern Kansas, people understand what's at stake. And to address the problem, what we have to look at, we have to look at the efficient technology that's been put in place in some areas, of what we have to do to make sure that we spread that technology to other parts of the state. But this requires buy-in. And I tell you what, having somebody from the farm working with those agricultural partners helps get that buy-in. In regard to the water supply, I will say this, we have to be diligent as we look at these data centers. We have to make sure that we understand that just one data center can reduce our massive river supply by 10%. We have to take a look at that as we're moving forward and analyzing what's going to be good for our state in terms of data centers and the amount of water used and what it does to our utility bills. And finally, I will work to do everything I can to fully fund and implement our water plans moving forward because it's all about the health and safety and the prosperity of our state as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to continue to move along here. All right, what executive or management experience best prepares you to run the state of Kansas? We'll start with Ethan Corson.
So I think this is a great question because, being governor is different than having opinions on legislation. It is about running the government of our state. It is about managing agencies. It is about managing thousands of our state employees. It is about managing a multi-billion-dollar budget. So I think we are right to say, what kind of executive experience do you have? Because while I'm proud of my service in the state Senate, that's not the kind of management experience that you need to have as governor. So what I've done is I've led one of the largest bureaus at the United States Department of Commerce. I managed the day-to-day operations of a bureau with 2,200 employees. Not only just 2,200 employees, but in 78 different countries, across different time zones, and in 105 US cities. We had an annual budget of over $500 million, and we woke up every day thinking about how we could open markets for American producers and for American farmers. That's the kind of executive leadership that will make me an effective governor.
Thank you. Senator Holster.
Thank you for the question, because I've been in the legislature for 10 years, but, you know, I want to make sure people know about what I did prior to that. For over a decade, I worked for Sprint, and there, I designed, for part of that time, I designed and implemented budgets, gosh, for operations tremendously larger than our state budget. And I was the person responsible for making sure we adhered to those budgets and that we got it done on time. And I will tell you, the process we've been using here is nothing like that. So, but like I said, that was the core responsibility I had for a time period. Additionally, for part of my time at Sprint, I literally created markets and developed products and generated revenue. Like, that's my background. And from that experience, I brought that here to the Capitol. And that's probably why I've been as effective as I have been in getting legislation passed and ending the Brownback experiment, because I had to work collaboratively with so many different people as I managed huge departments of thousands. That's the work experience I brought here and went to the Capitol to lead various groups, again, to solve problems and get our issues addressed. And that's what I continue to bring to the table and will bring forward as governor.
Thank you.
Literally, everything I've done in the last 30 years has been about solving problems, and that's when you're a small businessman in Kansas, that's all you do, is solve problems constantly. I have been building, operating, running, failing pretty bad at times, rebuilding again, doing it again for 35 years. I have laid in bed at night at midnight, sweating payrolls. It's a terrible experience. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I have worried about checks being cashed for the rent. I have written manuals, thousands of them, for operations in our small companies. I've built 6 small companies in the last 35 years. I've done all the things you have to do to be a small businessman in Kansas, and it's all tough as shit. That's the reality. And so when we think about small business in Kansas, we think about the fact that 99% of our state is small business, 60% with 5 employees or less. Those are the people we're talking about. Those are the people we're talking to in Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the governor's race isn't the only critical race on the ballot this year. What is your plan as you campaign this year to not only win this race, but secure other down ballot wins and help grow the party statewide in the process?
Well, you know, I've done this before. As I mentioned in the opening, I was the executive director of the Kansas Democratic Party when we had our most successful election cycle in a generation. When we elected Congresswoman Sharice Davids to the United States Congress, winning our first congressional election in a decade. When we put Governor Kelly in the governor's office, winning our first statewide election in 12 years. So I know what it takes to grow and to build and to strengthen the Kansas Democratic Party and to support candidates all across the state. One of the things that I'll do is I will be out in those rural areas campaigning for candidates because we frankly have not done a good enough job of that. And I will change that. That's why we've already been there so often and we've been campaigning in those areas. The other thing that I promise to you as your governor is that I will not only be the governor for the state, but I will be the leader of the Kansas Democratic Party, and then I will work side by side with you to build and to strengthen the Democratic Party. I will be at your bean feeds, I will be at your county party meetings, I will be at your Saturday eggs and issues breakfast. I will be with you because that's what I've done. You know, I mentioned some of the victories that we had when I was the executive director of the party. The thing that I'm actually most proud of is that when I left the Kansas Democratic Party, we had more counties organized as Democratic counties than we ever had in our state's history. And so I'm just as proud of that as any of the other work. So thank you.
So as I've been out and about the last, gosh, it's been almost a year now since I made my first visit somewhere. It's become very clear to me that our party, while I love the party and I consider myself a Democrat, we need work. We need to do more work on ourselves as a party. I think one of the things we can do as a party, and I would like to be very much a part of, is expanding our tent. Our tent isn't big enough. We're excluding some ideas. We're excluding some people who have a different opinion. And that's going to limit us in scope of where we can get people elected in offices. Our tent has got to get a little bit bigger. There's room for more people in the Democratic Party with slightly different views on certain things. There have been times where I feel like, because I have a couple different views on a couple issues with the party's platform, that I've essentially been asked not to be part of the party because I don't conform 100% to the party. I think that's going to limit us as a party drastically down the road. We're not going to get the offices we want in a red state with that kind of mentality. We're going to have to develop a bigger tent. And I would like to be very much a part of that expansion of that tent in this state so that we can get more offices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Over the past decade, I've been out there bringing people with me, because to me, that's what it's about. In 2016, when I was first elected to office in Johnson County, we had 5 Democrats elected out of, I think, 36. And that was tough. But a group of us, some volunteers, some supporters of mine, a couple of other folks that were in office, we got busy organizing and putting a structure in place to help with elections. And boy, has it made a difference. And in 8 years, we have gone from 5 to 17 elected Democrats in Johnson County. Unfortunately, the rest of the state hasn't done quite as well. And I will tell you, we have a model that works, and I'm excited about bringing it and modifying it to other parts of the state, to other counties, to make it work for those areas. Because I won't say that what's worked in Johnson County will automatically work everywhere else, but we've got to make adjustments. And I see great people out there ready to do the work to help our party grow. And I'll tell you this, as governor, I won't expect you to create it on your own out there. I will come to you and help you and give you the support you need. I've been showing up the past 10 years at every function I can to help get more Democrats elected. That will continue with me, and I will provide the support and structure that you need to be successful in your area and beyond, because to me, that's what it's about. It's about growing this party and bringing more people with me and making this state successful.
Thank you. We're getting down to our last few questions here, so we'll keep this rolling. All right. America is very polarized right now, and can you describe a time when you worked successfully across the aisle or worked to bring people together? So Martin, too.
Well, every day, it's similar to the answer that I had earlier. When you've been a small businessman and you are at the mercy of the customer, you're bringing the people together every single day. You have no limitations on who you want to sell your goods to or your services to. So I've been bridging that gap with people my entire life. You can't be successful as an entrepreneur and a small businessman in Kansas if you don't bridge that gap to all different types of people, cultures. Your very livelihood, your existence, your company, your employees depend on that type of philosophy. So I have no difficulty at all working across the lines, talking with other groups. In fact, I would encourage, as governor, to get more ideas from the Republican Party. We're going to have to blend and mix. We're going to have everybody together on this. It has to be we have to be moderate with our process on thinking about this. It's the only way we'll have any real success.
Thank you.
I'm happy to say this is something that, again, maybe my work experience has been helpful in, but I have some great examples of that collaborative effort where I've been able to bring people together in terms of some of the bills that I've personally introduced and I've gotten to the finish line. One in particular, statute of limitations reform for survivors of sexual violence. This was a bill I worked on for 4 years, along with survivors of sexual violence, because I will tell you, when we first brought that bill forward, nobody wanted to talk about it. I mean, even some Democrats wanted to stay away from it. But here's the fact of the matter. We have tough topics to deal with, and you need someone who's a fighter to help deal with those and bring them up. Again, we worked on that for 4 years, collaborating, educating, getting people on board. And ultimately, at the end of that, we passed that bill unanimously in both chambers and got it signed into law. Thank you. Additionally, I brought the purple alert system to Kansas. A lot of people didn't even know what that was. That's a system that helps return people back home safely who have tended to wander. Again, another education system, collaborative system. I've worked on tax reform collaboratively and brought people together. But I will tell you, of course, the biggest thing, my very first term, the Brownback experiment, which was destroying our state, I reached across the aisle and co-founded the Women's Bipartisan Caucus, which seems especially powerful today on International Women's Day. And it was women who sat down and started doing the hard work of collaborating and building a plan to get our state back on track. It wasn't easy, but we navigated it. We worked and worked and worked. And in the end, we put together a plan that ultimately ended the Brownback experiment, got our state back on track so we could better fund our schools and better fund our infrastructure and bring us to the point where we are today, where we've done so many great things over the past few years. I will continue to work with that collaborative spirit to make Kansas stronger.
Thank you.
So I recently worked as the senior Democrat on the Senate Tax Committee with one of the most conservative state senators in the Senate. He would actually be upset if I said one of, because he would consider himself the most conservative. But from sitting on that committee together over a number of years and actually listening to each other, the two of us realized that we had a shared passion for our veterans. And so even though we disagreed on so many other issues, we sat down together and we said, you know, we need to do more for our disabled veterans in this state. And we worked together over a number of years, and we finally got it signed into law last legislative session, and it will take effect this summer. But we created 100% sales tax exemption for our disabled veterans as a way of honoring their service. And that wouldn't be possible if I didn't reach across the aisle. I will also say that as governor, it matters how your peers talk about you and how they think about you. One of the things that has meant as much to me as anything during the course of the campaign is that there was a reporter from State Affairs. He was doing a profile of our campaign. He said, you know, you're talking about being bipartisan. I'm actually going to call some Republican senators, and I want to see what they think of you. And you know what they said on the record? And think about how we typically talk about each other in today's politics. One state senator said, you know what about Ethan? He is a uniquely good listener. That's an important skill as a governor. The other state senator said, you know what? We don't agree with Ethan on everything, but he's honest. We always know where he stands, and he's always somebody we can negotiate with. And to have peers and colleagues say that about you in print from the other party, that shows you exactly why I'll be such an effective governor.
Thank you. Okay, well, Governor Kelly has done a great job in the state of Kansas. She admitted that there were some things that she was not able to get done. What will you do to pick up the baton and get the things done that she wasn't able to get done? What are you?
You know, let me pick up on that where I left off. You know, Medicaid expansion is a critical issue for our state. I called it a moral and economic imperative. But to get that done, I think about the work that Governor Roy Cooper did in North Carolina. We had a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature. If we are truly serious about getting big things done, like Medicaid expansion, you are going to have to work with colleagues across the aisle, and you need a governor who can sit down and negotiate those deals, somebody who is respected by their colleagues and treats other colleagues with respect, because that's the only way we're going to truly do hard things like Medicaid expansion. We need to continue what we are doing on childcare. Governor Kelly has established the Office of Early Childhood. I will make sure that that office is effectively carrying out its mission, that they have the resources they need, because that creates a really unique opportunity for us going forward. And I will raise the minimum wage in Kansas. Every single year I've been in the Kansas Senate, I've introduced a bill to raise the minimum wage. This isn't something I just started talking about when I decided to run for governor. I've been fighting for raising the minimum wage in Kansas every year I've been in the Senate, because it is wrong and not who we want to be as a state, that you can be working in Kansas full-time and living in poverty. The other thing that we need to do is we need to fix the crisis in special education. Governor Kelly talked about it last night. I have the relationships and the ability to also get that done.
Thank you. Marty Tooley.
Public schools, public schools, public schools. I mean, Governor Kelly has done a fantastic job, but making sure schools are funded is one thing. Becoming the greatest public school system in the country is a whole other league. And that's where I would like to see us go. Think about how different the state of Kansas would look if we didn't just have a public school system, but we had the public school system. Think about all the economic opportunities that in itself could create. Again, when we go back to the budget of the state is 60% public schools. It's the thing we do. It's our number one priority. 30,000 teachers, 500,000 kids. I mean, this is what we do in our state, and we can do it so much better. If we can become the greatest public school system in the country, the sky's the limit for what our state can do. We won't have to beg for Panasonic to come here. We won't have to beg for data centers. Companies will come seek us out because we're that kind of state. Our priority is public schools. So while I think Governor Kelly has done a fantastic job, we have way more work to do in the public school system, including the teacher pay, the meals for kids. The opportunity there is endless, it's huge, and something we can't accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, fighting for things is great, bringing bills forwards is great, but you gotta get them to the finish line. And there's no Democrat, from my understanding, that's been more successful in getting bills that introduced to the finish line than myself. And that takes a lot of navigating, a lot of collaborating, and a lot of work. And in terms of picking up the baton from here and where do we go, I will tell you this. I will keep doing that navigating, I will keep doing that work, but I will also tell you this. I won't cross certain lines. And I see some of that happening now, where we're compromising on some of our principles, where we are compromising to the extent that we've gone too far on some issues, and I will not do that. There are certain lines that I feel that we should not cross. But here's what I will do in particular, like let's talk about Medicaid expansion. Our advocates, our organizations have gone quiet in terms of advocating. We've got to get them back to work educating new legislators about why it's important for our state, because otherwise those legislators, they're just hearing from the naysayers. And that happens on these other topics and issues too. We have a lot of our advocates that have gone quiet and just given up. We've got to get them back to work along with us who are fighting. But I'll tell you this too, we got to flip some seats. This is unsustainable, this supermajority. They are working to take away voting rights, reproductive health care. They're working to take away our schools. And every day that they are in power and control this legislature, we are getting closer to them reaching their agenda. And I tell you this, I am absolutely committed to winning this race and flipping some of those House seats that will be on the ballot and bringing more great Democrats with me. So we can move forward into the direction Kansas should be moving, not where we are now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on to our last two questions here, and so far so good, so let's keep up the good momentum. Okay, so when you are elected as governor, what is the first priority of your administration? We'll start with Marty Tully.
I think priority number one is to set a tone. A leadership tone that says that we're going to make some changes, that we're going to work across the aisle, we're going to work in the middle, we're going to identify what we need to get happen in the state, what we need to do to get better. And we're going to make sure we're going to put a serious plan in place to make that happen. It's one thing to say, we want great public schools. It's another thing to actually have that plan and understand exactly what we're going to do to make that happen. And one of the things we're going to have to do is we are going to have to lose the idea that taxes is not part of that equation. Since I've been on the road, one of the things I hear routinely is, property tax relief, tax cuts. I mean, this is one thing. These are not ways we solve big problems. We will need to pay taxes. Taxes is part of the equation, but that's okay. We can do that. We've done that before. Kansas is a hardworking state. That's how we get things done in this state. If we were to take for instance, go back to public schools, if we were to get public school pay to 35 ranked in the nation, right? If we were to give one healthy meal to all kids in our state at no expense, that's about $30 a month to the average family in Kansas to get that done. That's a doable scenario. And we just need to set that precedent. We have an understanding and we have strong leadership to set that precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just go down the line to Senator Holster.
We have to focus on growth. We have to focus on the things that we have here in our state and the tools available to bring growth. And I tell you, from my previous experience at working at Sprint and the healthiest part of that corporation, I bring that growth mindset with me, and that's what I bring to Kansas in terms of where we're moving in the future. Because I'll tell you this, you can't keep cost cutting your way to success. We have to find those new revenue streams, and we have to work in those areas. And from that, then we are better able to fund our schools. We're better able to help our hospitals across the state. We're better able to fulfill the pledge that we have to our people to be a forward-moving state, to take care of our children, free lunches, free school lunches, and to take care of the most vulnerable out there. That's what it's about. And again, that growth mindset, because that's not what we're seeing right now at the Capitol. What we are seeing is an agenda that is being pushed by extremists that's focused on culture wars. And if they were so focused to helping our state grow, we wouldn't be seeing things like bathroom bills, right? We wouldn't be seeing things like, oh gosh, what do we see? Charlie Kirk Day. We'd be seeing real types of bills in terms of property tax relief. We'd be seeing focus on growth, but that's not what the other side is bringing. And as your governor, that's what you're going to see with me. You're going to see that growth mindset brought to Kansas every day.
Thank you. So let me tell you what my first 90 days as governor look like. Number one, we are going to tackle the affordability crisis in Kansas by implementing my working families agenda. We have a detailed plan of 8 specific things we are going to do to drive down costs for families, from raising the minimum wage, paid leave, child tax credit, property tax relief for homeowners, renters, everybody registering a vehicle, for seniors. We are going to make Kansas affordable again, because that has always been the fundamental promise. I'll tell you this, as governor, my goal is I will wake up every single day thinking about how we can make Kansas the most affordable state in the country where you can have a middle-class quality of life. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to implement a strong school funding formula, because our current school funding formula expires at the end of this year. So that school funding formula is going to make sure the schools are adequately and equitably funded. It's going to end the crisis in special education. It's going to make sure that we are increasing teacher pay. And the third thing that I'm going to do that I'm uniquely capable of doing of all the candidates is I'm going to keep the economic development success going. We need somebody who can hit the ground running, because we have so many exciting opportunities that are midstream, and we can't take a step back, and we can't miss those windows. So we need somebody who can pick up the baton from David Tolan and keep that growth going. I'm that person. When Lieutenant Governor Tolan goes to Japan to talk to Kansas businesses, I'm the Democrat that he brings with him.
Thank you. We're on to our last question here, and then our closing statements. Okay, will you work to support the nominee after the August primary?
Yes.
Or no?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, there we go. And just over to Marty Tooley for our closing statement. You have 2 minutes.
Well, as we said earlier, this is the most important governor's race I think we've ever had in the history of the country, in the history of the state. I just don't think there's any doubt about that. We are going to see such crazy shit happen if a Republican gets to the big chair. And it can't happen, folks. The voucher program is going to be law within 6 months if a Republican wins. Okay, women's right to choose going to get legislated to death as soon as a Republican wins. And these are things that, if they happen and become law, we may never see them change in our lifetime because of the super majority that we've all talked about up here this afternoon. They may be with us forever. So this governor's race is immensely important. It's the most important governor's race. I mean, we have to win this race. What we're seeing at the federal level right now with the golden Trump, it's gonna pale compared to what could happen in this state with the supermajority. We're going to lose what we think of as Kansas if we don't win this governor's race. And it's going to come down to moderate Republicans, independents, rural Kansas. It's not going to be Johnson County. It's going to be the other 104 counties that matter when this race happens. So the person who comes out of the primary has to be somebody that we see who can win the general. Because it's not enough just to have the nice politician from the Democratic Party, somebody we like. It has to be the person who can beat the Republican. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you, all of you, for being here today. You're likely going to continue to hear a lot from us about endorsements, other topics, and I'll tell you, I've got 150 endorsements from leaders across the state. But I'll tell you what, nothing matters more to the people of Kansas than actually winning the election and getting results. And here's what I will tell you. I've been doing the heavy lifting for over a decade, winning the tough races, the only person on this stage to win the races in red districts. And the person who consistently has been able to bring forward bills and get them to the finish line. That's probably why a recent poll shows that I have more than a 20-point lead over my nearest competitor in this primary. And I think it needs to be mentioned, I have a whole network of independents and Republicans, moderates lined up ready to support me for the general. We're at a critical juncture as we are seeing on the other side extremists lined up wanting to take over. And here's the thing, it's imperative that we pick somebody who can win in the general and defeat this MAGA agenda. As far as electability, again, I'm the only person in this race, in this primary, who wins races in red districts. And I've done it 4 times. That's the type of skill set we're gonna need on the state level, in a red state. The other side, they're gonna probably nominate somebody like Ty Masterson, or Jeff Boyer, somebody like Trump. Here's the good news. That's exactly the type of candidate I have beat 4 times in red areas. I know how to handle that. I know what type of strategy to bring forward. Not only am I committed to winning this race, I am committed to flipping seats and bringing more Democrats with me. Sadly, we've lost some numbers over the years across the state, but I will work with all of you to make sure we move in a better direction and grow this party. Additionally, fighting and delivering results, you know it. I've been doing that my entire life. And I've been doing it not for insiders, not the establishment or special interest groups, for the people. Because that's who I represent. Our times call for a fighter with bold vision. I ask you to join with me today as we move forward to make Kansas more affordable, more competitive, and stronger for the next generation. Thank you.
So I want to thank the Kansas Democratic Party. I want to thank all of you for being here. As a former executive director, I know exactly how much work goes into making these weekends such a success. So I want to thank our incredible Chair Repass. I want to thank our incredible KDP officers, and most of all, I want to thank the amazing Kansas Democratic Party staff. So I've traveled across Kansas speaking with voters from all different backgrounds: rural, urban, suburban, young, old, teachers, farmers, nurses, small business owners, union members. And you know what? We all want the same thing. We want an affordable life in the state we love, surrounded by our family and friends. We want a great education for our kids, and we want good jobs in our communities. We can get this all done, but we have to win in November. Last night, we heard Governor Kelly's sage advice about what it takes to win statewide in Kansas. And I am the only candidate in this race who can put together the coalition of Republicans, Independents, and Democrats that we need to win in November. What brought me from a baseball-obsessed kid to a dad running for governor is really simple. I want Kansas to be a place where my kids and yours can build a better life. Regardless of whether you live in Hayes or Wichita, Fredonia or Topeka, you deserve a strong education system. You deserve health care that doesn't break the bank, and you deserve to have economic opportunity in your own community. I'm running for governor because I understand the modern challenges facing Kansas families today. I have experience in Eastern and Western Kansas, and I know what those communities need. And I have the professional experience to foster the economic development our our state needs for residents to grow and to thrive. Kansas gave me my chance. I will fight like hell to make sure that the next generation gets theirs.
Thank you. That will conclude our candidate forum for today. I do want to bring up Chair Repass before we officially close. Thank you to our candidates, and thank you all for being here today and enjoying this forum.
Okay, I have the super secret last question. No, I'm kidding. A little levity. Thank you so much. That's conclude our Washington days. We're going to allow you to hang out for a little while with these amazing candidates out in the hallway. Thank you all for saying thank you. I know that you support the party, and I appreciate it. I do need to thank our title sponsors again, Smart and Middle of the Road. You are being in this room for free because of them. The Republican Party charged $75 a person to walk in and watch their candidates debate. Everything that you got to participate in, stands or lunches and dinners, were provided because of our sponsors. So again, thank you, Smart, Middle of the Road, all of our candidate sponsors and all of our sponsors. Please thank them. I would also like you to please thank our ASL interpreters. Both of them did a phenomenal job. Off the cuff, a wonderful job. Thank you both. And this is a wonderful venue, the town site venue. Can we please give a round of applause for them and their staff? Trust me, we had them hopping all weekend and they did a wonderful job. Again, and I know we've already clapped for them, but the Kansas Democratic Party staff, I will tell you, no one has slept in about a week and a half. Just a reminder, since we are live streaming, we are going to take a week off. Our main office will be closed, but if you need anything, please reach out to your congressional districts or your county parties. They are there doing a wonderful job. The county parties are like, oh no, y'all got this. You got this, I promise. If there's a major crisis, give us a call, but we're going to take a little well-deserved break. And then last but not least, if you're watching online, you've seen a bottom scroller. It's been scrolling all the names of our Blue Kansas Club members. So once again, I want to make a plea for you to please become a Blue Kansas Club member. And here's the other thing I'm going to tell you to do with those dollars. We support these candidates. We build the infrastructure. They're building their campaigns. It's like building a car. A really nice car to drive across the state. But we build the infrastructure, that roads that they are going to drive those campaigns across. That's why you invest with us. And we do it equally and fairly across all of them. And I want to say this, yesterday our state party and our state committee meeting voted for neutrality. So that you all will know that we're treating all of them equally. We want you to decide, we want them to have every opportunity to come and bring their message to you. And on August 4th, they decide. One more public service announcement. We will be hosting another forum on April 26th in conjunction with the Dole Institute. The Dole Institute for our gubernatorial candidates only. That's what they've asked us to do. So our gubernatorial candidates have been invited. That we'll talk to you in the campaign about what the threshold is for that, but April 26th. So last but not least, I want to end the way we always do. If you've ever heard me speak, if you watch our chair chats on our YouTube channel, I want to say this to you all. First of all, thank you for making Washington Day so successful. Thanks to all of our officers. Thanks to our great candidates. And this is how I am whenever I'm talking to Democrats. May God bless America. May God bless the great state of Kansas. And may God bless you all. Thank you for a wonderful Washington Day. Please give our candidates another round of applause. They're going to stand for pictures. Thank you, thank you, thank you.